Is it time?
Yes, Sankalp, I think we're ready.
All right, perfect. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining in. A very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. I don't know which part of the world you're joining from, but I've been told that there are people from Canada, US, some of countries in Africa, Finland, India, and Singapore coming into the event. I am Sankalp Chaturvedi, Director of the Gandhi Center for Inclusive Innovation at Imperial College London in the UK. A very warm welcome to our annual Social Impact Day. This is the first time we are doing it online, and we really appreciate that you're here and you're trying to take your time out of your busy schedule to be here and on a weekday. And I was told here in UK it's going to be the hottest day of the year. So welcome. Lockdown or no lockdown, we strongly believe creating social impact, doing social good, and being socially responsible should not be a weekend or outside office hours issue. More and more companies are taking this on board, and they're trying to do a lot more nowadays in this space, and we are trying our best as well. I strongly believe, and I'm sure my team as well, they believe social impact is should be a central core DNA for any person and organizations that we are dealing with. It should be inbuilt as a fixed norm for all of us. And during current times, I know it's been challenging. Quite a few of us are not used to working from home or trying to do multiple activities. This aspect of social impact, doing social good, and being socially responsible is more important than ever. We at the Gandhi Center are trying hard year on year to engage with the visionaries, practitioners, policymakers, academics, and most importantly, with the students to interact with each other. And in the process, what we are trying to do is create social impact through various initiatives. This year, on Social Impact Day, we want to acknowledge and really appreciate these Herculean efforts of healthcare workers around the globe. I'm sure you will feel the same. They have been amazing. I personally find less words to actually talk about their own efforts. They are the frontline workers. They are there. They are doing the task. And the only thing we can do is help them out as much as possible by staying socially distant, but also making sure that we are washing our hands continuously and making sure we are in this together. And you will definitely join me in thanking them in any form possible. To symbolize and thank these real life heroes, superheroes in fact, we have created this virtual background that you can see, which will be used by speakers, and hopefully all of you who are attending this event via Zoom or YouTube or Facebook will have a moment to start using it, so that at the end of this event, the day, we can use this space, have a virtual background, all of us, and we can create a moment, a memorable moment right then. And it will be an honor to be part of that as well. So please stay along till the end of the day. We have a very jam-packed day planned for you, and we hope that you will be part of that journey as well. Being a professor of leadership, I was told and reminded again and again to talk about something very pertinent for this time. And I do a lot of research on leadership myself, and managing leaders through the crisis is a very integral part of what we have to do today. So what some of the countries currently have started coming out of the lockdown, and I think these lessons on managing crisis is extremely important. And that's where I would like to start and talk about some of the lessons for all of you before I start the day as well. So first and foremost, and I do say that people always look up to the leaders. So leaders, please remain calm and reassure your remote workers. You have to understand that they are working and working from home. And home means multiple responsibilities at home. And as soon as we recognize that there are more people at home, and they might be in different circumstances, they cannot social distance, they need to go out. But what one thing will actually help them is for you to stay calm and display confidence, so that employees can remain calm too. They are looking up to you all the time. Emotions often have a spillover from work into home life. And this quarantined or the socially distant or lockdown measures have actually improved the whole essence of staying calm and displaying it. So please be patient as some of the countries are trying to recover out of the crisis very slowly. The most important thing would be resilience. We need it more and more to manage home and work from home. So please try to stay calm. There are going to be issues with small things here and there, but move on. The idea is to, when you're calm, people will get confidence from you. The second thing I do tell, and important, especially for leaders, is being proactive. You got to lead from front. In uncertain times, leaders must be proactive around planning and organizing resources for teams who are working from home. They must show resilience and patience and consider issues from other people's perspective too. Even though when we come out of lockdown slowly, celebrate short-term wins and share positivity. Where you have to make tough decisions or are unable to meet your people's need, explain them why this is the case. The third most important message is frame specific messages. And personally, I've been watching all the leaders, amazing leaders outside around the globe. And one thing that I do want to re-emphasize, especially for this occasion, frame specific messages. Please don't give vague messages when you are leading people. This is one of the most important one, because when we don't know something, we want to give a vague message saying this is the best, this is common sense. But unfortunately, common sense is not common. The definition of common sense itself is limited to what a person believes. So that keeps on changing from one person to another person. So don't give vague messaging to people. Amid crisis, employees look for clear messages from leaders. This is particularly true when it comes to delivering bad news. And especially when you're coming out and you know that we are going to hit a very deep economic recession, it's important we are very clear. So when you're giving a negative news, you have to make sure that you're not undermining morale. They might be sad, but being furloughed or something, but you have to make sure that you tell them why. You have to tell them reasons why this is happening. So try to keep your negative messages direct if possible, and then explain what we can do or what we are hoping to do in future as well. And the fourth important one, stay connected with your team. Very important. Being a leader is challenge and a responsibility. During turbulent situations like this, leaders need to connect with every member more than ever. You can have a balance. I'm not saying that you have to meet them every 5 minutes, but it's important that you stay connected, because knowing people is as important. Leaders must act as a role model and support collaboration. Together, everyone achieves more. And it's important your employees feel that togetherness. And even in a virtual sense, if they can feel that you're connected, it's extremely important. Practice, the fifth lesson, practice active listening. Something that is happening right now, we have not seen this before. We know how to empathize in person. But now with a virtual world, remote working coming into play, it's extremely important that you start thinking about visualizing and creating that virtual empathy when you're trying to deal with your employees. It's Mental Health Awareness Week here at UK. But the messages are very clear for all. Mental health will become very important as we slowly coming out of the lockdown. And for some countries who are still on the lockdown, it becomes extremely important. So there will be lots of socio-psychological challenges. Parents providing childcare or homeschooling may struggle with their workload. In the absence to face-to-face contact, those living alone may battle with their mental well-being and productivity. So leaders, you have a responsibility to work with. The last one I do want to emphasize is specifically for students and the young entrepreneurs. Yes, times are challenging, and you may think that it is the wrong time for you to start something new. Instead of staying home, spending time to watch streaming websites and on social media and wait for the world to reopen, you should do exactly the opposite. Think differently. What can you do most for the world will not do? Most of the world will be occupied with other things. How can you lead the change? That's the question you're asking. Challenges are the biggest opportunities for you. Think of solutions that can change the world and be impactful. And think in a way that it's going to be a socially responsible that you have in play as well. For the first time, I'm saying staying in the box, you can be more creative too. So focus on that. Utilize your time. For me, the best recipe to start the ripple of change is to create a platform which can be guided by vision of all those visionaries around us. So we have planned this particular event. We kept it small, but we wanted to have it as impactful as possible. We will have a fireside chat with international sports icon, Anil Kumble. This will be followed by a panel led by Simon Ishkawa on ethics and inclusion in AI. Then we're going to have our annual Ideas to Impact Challenge. We have 6 teams that as finalists competing today. So please look out for them. We will also make a breakout rooms later on in the day where you will have an opportunity to start working and talking to these brilliant people, students who have come up with these ideas. We will also have a keynote from Oves, who will be speaking on building resilient societies post-pandemic. And finally, I will give you an opportunity to have a virtual hangout where we can talk to each other. We'll create a moment with trying to thank all the healthcare workers together and then trying to talk and share our experiences and questions for the Eye-to-Eye finalists as well. So before I let Anil speak, there are a couple of housekeeping rules that I would want you to know. If you are joining us on Zoom, we would request you all to keep your audio and video off unless you are scheduled to speak and you are a panelist. All viewers, please use chat button to ask any questions to our panelists. At the end, we will have breakout rooms, as I said earlier, and you will be given opportunities to interact with all of them. So if you have any questions for the panelists, we have an excellent team working behind the scene. So please post your questions on the chat option on Zoom or YouTube or Facebook. So they're going to be collating those questions and putting onto the panel as well. So finally, the moment that you have been waiting for, let me start by inviting our first honorary keynote speaker who needs no introduction, or I should say he needs only one if you don't know cricket at all. And I was doing a bit of research and I was told there are up to 2 billion people around the world who play cricket or know about the cricket itself. And that's not much. It's around 25-30% of the world population. So you get the idea here. He's one of the iconic cricketers whose life has been devoted to the second most important, I believe, the most important sport after football in the world. He is known for his determination and patience on and off the field. He is popularly known as Jumbo. He's played Test cricket, one-day internationals for 18 years, and he actually holds. He has taken 619 wickets. He holds the record of most Test wickets by an Indian, and third highest wicket taker of all time. So let me not waste time and invite Anil to share, and maybe you can turn on your audio as well, Anil.
Yes. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah, thank you.
How are you,
Yeah,
Anil?
thank you, Sankalp. I'm good, Sankalp. Thank you for having me. It's indeed a great honor being a part of this discussion. And Imperial College is something that I would have wanted to get into as an engineering student, but I'm glad that at least in this way I'm able to be a part of the Imperial College and address the students and participants. Of course, my daughter did her master's there, yes. So I'm really glad that we've been able to do this.
Thank you so much, Anil. Once again, we do love to have you more often at Imperial as well. So we really hope that you come back, not as a student, maybe as a visionary, and we would love to have an opportunity to share the experience in one-to-one world as well. So because I know that you have a very limited time to talk about things as well, and the theme that we are working and would want your experiences to be shared with us is to talk about a theme of leadership under pressure. So maybe just to start off talking about how are you keeping yourself busy during these challenging times? I know that you are so used to people, media, doing lots of things. And in normal scenario, you would have been busy with IPL now. So
yes,
what are you doing?
Yeah.
Tell us.
No, No, generally, I spend a lot of time at home when I'm not, of course, traveling, or even when I used to play cricket, when I was not playing or traveling, I would be at home and not necessarily go out. I'm not someone who socializes regularly, going out and meeting friends. I would prefer staying at home and spending time with the family. So that's exactly what I'm doing. So nothing's changed as far as I'm concerned. The routines are similar. I wake up at the same time, and I sleep at the same time. So I don't want to change that cycle, because you can get into some sort of a rut, thinking that you can just relax totally. I've been, of course, helping my wife with some of the chores in the morning, for her prayers, and that's something that I'm doing. Spending time with the kids. I cooked for the first time for the kids. Yes, of course, we are missing our daughter, who's currently in London. Whenever I guess when we can all start traveling, would love to visit London and then meet her. So yes, of course, we miss her, but then I know that she's safe in London. But other than that, I love photography. I love that's a passion that I have developed over the years. So I'm spending a lot of time trying to unlearn a few of the things that probably I was committed to in photography, and trying to learn the basics, and then trying to work on post-processing as well. Mm-hmm. Other than that, the two companies that I run, Kenwick, which is of course a sports coaching academy model, wherein we are on the ground training kids at all levels, be it at the grassroots, the elite, and also the aspiring athlete. So that's obviously taken a bit of a hit, because we can't really go out and train in these situations. But the other business, which is Spectacom, which is, I'm building a sensor-based tech for cricket. And that's obviously something that we are working from home and developing the app and the models. So that's something that obviously has kept me really going.
Oh, fantastic. So clear messages that you are having a vacation because you normally don't get one. And there is an aspect of that you're keeping yourself busy, and especially you having routines definitely helps in that domain as well. So good that you are doing that. So the first question is from me, but other aspects, I have a list of questions that we have actually engaged different audiences, and they have raised those questions. So I would go to put them across to you as well. So I believe sports as a context, and sportsmen in particular, have been really adept at managing pressure on the field. When there's so much pressure from audience, people, and the team, so it seems like a lot of pressure that they are so used to managing. Based your experience on and off the cricket field, what lessons do you think people can learn from in managing pressure crisis?
No, I think what you need to, at least from a sporting perspective, I can only speak in that context, is again setting routines. For me, routines was extremely important. Once you start managing routines, and once you practice the way you're going to play a match, so you are actually putting yourself under pressure when you're practicing at the nets or training. So at training, you need to be practicing like how you would go into a match, and create situations in your mind, and then try and solve those in practice. The moment you do that, then it's easy in a game. Yes, everybody feels the pressure. Everybody is nervous getting into a match. What will happen? What will happen to the toss? Will I be bowling first? Will I be batting first? So those kind of pressures. What if? I mean, we are also human. So you certainly tend to have all those negativity as well. But you need to reinforce yourself with positivity. The only way that can happen is if you're routinely practicing that at training, rather than trying to do something different in a match. So if you can do that at training, and it is repetitive, the moment cricket is very, very monotonous, so to speak, day in, day out as a bowler, you're constantly looking to implement and try and recreate the same thing over and over again. For that to happen, you need to be practicing diligently the way you want to put pressure on in practice situations, and then match become a sort of a routine. And I don't think you need to give too much context to a match. because sometimes you start giving context to matches. For some, it could be a selection match wherein you know that if you underperform, you will be out of the team. For some, it could be saying, oh, no, everything is dependent on me. So I need to go out there and then win this game. So that again starts putting additional pressure. The other aspect is, okay, this is a final. This is a do or die. If we lose this game, then we are out of the competition. Then that is additional pressure. So I think when you're dealing with pressure, what is important is to keep away what is not in your control. These are the 3 or 4 things that I just mentioned are not necessarily in our control. So the moment you keep all of those things which are not in our control, then managing pressure is a lot easier.
Thank you. So idea is practice. The idea of visualizing before you actually are in that situation helps, and trying to create, again, the structure element comes out very nicely as well. So the next question I have is from Tarun from London. He's actually talking about, based on your experience, which one episode stands out wherein you think you led pressure very well on the field?
On the field, yes, I think it's a bit of on and off the field. If you go back to 2008 in Australia, when we toured, when I was the captain of the team, we went into the series wanting to win the series, because the previous time when we traveled in 2004, we came very close to winning the series, but for the first time, a subcontinent team came back from Australia without losing. We had drawn the series in 2004. So in 2007 and 8, when I went as a captain, we wanted to win the series. We lost the first test. Then the second test, we were in really good positions to win the game. We should have at least drawn the match, but we lost. And there was an incident on the field where one of our players, Harbhajan Singh, was banned for three matches, was sentenced. I mean, there was a sentence given to Harbhajan for 3 matches. So that caused a lot of sort of challenges off the field, because there was a time when there was pressure of suggesting that we could come back from the tour. We could call off the tour because it was getting ugly. So there was a challenge for me to take decisions, something that you're not used to as a cricketer, because as a cricketer, you're constantly used to taking decisions on the field. Here I was, I was the captain, I was the leader, I had to take a decision off the field, wherein you have to keep the entire team together under these circumstances, encourage all of them to not lose out on the goal, because the goal was to win the series. Of course, now it was not possible for us to win the series because it was a 4-test match series. And the best that we could get as an outcome from that series was a drawn series. So we had 2 more test matches. I had to motivate the entire team. And luckily for me, I had senior players within my group, former captains, and most of the players I had played for a long, long time. So you need that kind of people around you in such a situation. So I was lucky in that sense. And to me, that was the biggest learning experience. And that was the biggest challenge off the field that I had to handle. And again, on the field, immediately after that was a test match in Perth, where generally most teams, forget subcontinental teams, even other teams traveling to Australia, it's very difficult to beat Australia in Perth. And here we were facing Australia in their home ground in Perth after having won 16 test matches in a row. So it was a massive challenge. And when I won the toss, most teams decide to field first. But we had decided that the best way to beat Australia, irrespective of the surface, was to bat first, put pressure on the Aussies, and then try and win the game from there. And that's exactly what happened in Perth. I think for me, that was the biggest challenge. One was off the field, 10 days prior to the test match. And on the field, the challenge was at Perth, where against all odds, we came together, won against the best team in the world at that point in time.
All right. No, that kind of summarizes, because I had multiple questions that are in front of me, and you have tried to club together a couple of them as well. So maybe one thing to shift, talk about one of the skills aspect, because the leadership skills are extremely important. And this one comes from Abhinav in New York. He was asking about a simple aspect on leadership, we have had several playful players who were extremely talented and skillful, but not as successful as captain or leader of the cricket team. Why do you think that was the case?
No, I think, each one has his own clicks, in terms of how they want to prepare. You can't have the entire squad prepare in the same way. Yes, there are certain things that you do to prepare as a team, but individually, you need to be, as a leader, you need to have the knowledge and not necessarily, sometimes you need to know the person more importantly than as a leader, than his skills. Because when you have 15 players playing for the country, you know that all of them are extremely skillful and extremely talented. What actually clicks and what actually helps them motivate? Sometimes it's not the number of hours that you spend on the field. Sometimes just backing off and letting these players relax and not worry about the game itself can motivate them. So I think, yes, there are certain talented individuals, and some people believe that if they have the talent, they don't need to work hard. But someone like Sachin Tendulkar, who we all know was exceptionally talented, but he was the most hardworking cricketer that you would come across. So it's not just talent that will take you all the way. It's also, you need to put in the hard yards. You need to have that discipline. And that's something that sometimes some of the players lack. And you would want to identify those and address it. I think the most important aspect of a leader is to address those issues, knowing the person rather than addressing it as one in the same way that you would want to address a team. So you need to know the person individually and try and get into his space. Let him feel comfortable that you're addressing an issue here, because nobody wants to take criticism. Nobody likes to be told that, look, this is something that is not acceptable. But as long as you're emphasizing positive messaging all the time, and you're communicating with every individual who's a part of your team, then it becomes easier to also have a hard chat with one of the players if need be. And like you said in your preamble, Sankalp, as a leader, you need to lead from the front. You can't be asking something from your team if you yourself are not committed to it. So it's extremely critical as a leader that you need to lead from the front, and you need to lead by example. And you need to be only ask your players to do what you believe that you can do. Otherwise, it's a wasteful exercise.
Absolutely. No, fantastic. Thank you. It kind of resonates with lots of research done on the leadership in other contexts as well. So thank you so much for that. One last one. I'm just cautious of your time and the thing as well. As I did tell you that in UK, we are celebrating a mental health awareness week, and most of the world is on a physical lockdown, and we are sort of afraid of thinking about a mental lockdown as we try to recover, come out of it. And there are lots of research already happening, talking about number of fights that are happening, lots of unrest happening, and people are going, even number of divorces have increased post this scenario. So my question to you is there any final comments on trying to suggest the audience, what can we do to avoid that mental lockdown? And anything beyond that we have talked about would be helpful as a final closing argument.
Yeah. Thank you, Sankalp. It's a massive challenge. What we are facing is unprecedented. Nobody ever thought that the whole world will come to a standstill, and that's exactly what has happened in the last couple of months. It's a challenge. Like I said, you need to keep your mind occupied. The best way to do that is to have another habit or another hobby that you would want to pursue. I mean, for me, photography is a stress buster. Like that, I would encourage all of you, especially the young students, to have something that they can reach out to and then excel and try and excel in that and be passionate about. And as long as your mind is occupied, that is number one. Number two, to keep the mental equilibrium, I think you need to be physically active. If you're not physically active, it's very difficult to get the balance in the mind. So I urge everyone to be physically active. As long as you're physically active, sweating it out. I know in London it's not easy to sweat it out. It's a lot easier in India, but it's important to sweat it out. Try and get whatever form of exercise. It need not be running outdoors or gymming, but even at home, you can do simple exercises and try and keep yourself active. The moment you're physically active, the mind is alert. The mind doesn't become negative. You need to constantly, start bringing positive thoughts in your mind and not think too far ahead. What if? Don't worry. I mean, everything will fall in place. It's just a matter of having faith and self-belief. And the other thing that is important is don't look too far beyond. I mean, just look, okay, you should be happy with the space you are in, because there are others who are suffering a lot more. I mean, we have seen over the last 2 months that we are actually the privileged lot who can reach out to a lot of people who have been in worse situations. So I think try and help the needy, try and help people around you, and that will keep you really sane, and that will keep you focused. Keep your mind, keep your body active. I think that's the message that I'd like to give out.
Thank you so much. And I completely buy into that as well, once again. So thank you so much. Staying active and staying positive are the key messages from Anil here. So thank you so much, Anil. We really appreciate that you gave us time. And we would love to have you back at Imperial in person, and hope the lockdown stays. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Sankalp.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone as well. It's wonderful to interact, and good luck. All the very best.
Thank you.
Wishes from my side.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So thank you. That was fascinating. Lots of key messages coming out and trying to talk to Anil as well. So let's carry on and try to take you into a space with our lovely moderator, Simon. She has worked together on creating this panel, thinking about the ethics and inclusion in artificial intelligence. Simon is exceptional, and she has been part of Gandhi Center for a while now, and she will tell more about herself in a bit, but one word that can define her is amazing, and you can learn a lot from her experiences on inclusion and trying to create on ethical dimensions in different things as well. So Simon, I would request you and your panel to be visible now. And I'm going myself on the mute so that you can carry on from here.
Thank you, Professor Sankalp. This is Simone Ishikawa here. Christina, Vivian, and Hepsi, if you could just unmute yourself and put yourself on the video so we can see you. Perfect. And make a bit of a noise so that we can see you. Hello.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
There's Christina.
Hi.
And I see Hepsi.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, it's Vivian, but it says that you're not putting me on video.
Oh.
It says the co-host has asked. Oh, now I'll start my video. Sorry.
You're there. Perfect. That's great. So yeah, thank you for the panelists for joining, and thank you, Professor Sankalp, for such a wonderful introduction. As you said, my name is Simone Ishikawa. I'm an associate here at the Gandhi Center for Inclusive Innovation. Just for a brief background, I've spent about 15 years in global investment banks such as JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, and I've spent the last year working for a fintech unicorn called Oak North. I've been given the honor of moderating the expert panel today on ethics and inclusion in artificial intelligence, and would like to cover a few housekeeping items for you before we get started, because you can see the lovely panelists here who I will introduce very soon. Firstly, this session will be recorded and live streamed for usage of Imperial College. And secondly, please use the chat room to ask any questions to the panel. We'll do our best to answer them during the Q&A at the end of the session. Thank you to all those who have already posted their questions on Twitter or LinkedIn by using hashtag #ideas2impact. We'll continue to gather questions from these channels as well, so please keep them coming. Thirdly, thank you to the Gandhi Center as well as the Imperial Business School for hosting us and for this event virtually. And I really hope to do this again in person at the next event. Just as an opening, I'd like to share that I'm certainly feeling a bit of a conference nostalgia. I'm a frequent conference visitors on all capacity, and you're missing the human interactions and dynamics in the conference rooms. But I'm also a big fan of shifts in our attention to what matters and what most importantly, we've been doing in terms of prioritizing with the little time that we have and appreciating the little things that these last 8 weeks have brought to us. We're now much more dependent on internet connections and bandwidth, and of course the Zoom operability to get anything done. But also the methods of connecting with people on emails and virtually have become a lot more important, which we're all getting used to, but also miss the old ways of face-to-face. I guess on that front, the topic of today's discussion is very timely. Artificial intelligence, even though the idea and field has been in existence for a long time, it's never been more relevant and applicable given the surge in big data with internet, and of course in our current environment with the new norm post-COVID-19 lockdown. Experts have different opinions about how underwhelming AI's impact has been, given all the hype in recent years. And we'll discuss today, hopefully, about where we are in these use cases and limitations and how businesses can think about implementing them. We will, my own company, Oak North, have dropped AI from its name after trying to tell the world that it was actually analytical intelligence rather than artificial. And in some cases, we also hear people mocking some big tech companies that their tech is AI without the intelligence. So we're delighted today to be joined by AI experts in their respective fields for the next hour. Firstly, Christina Blacklaws, who is the immediate past president of the Law Society of England and Wales and chair of 2 government panels in the law tech space. We also have Hepsi Pemberton, who is the CEO of Equality Group, which is a consulting, research, and search company focused on diversity. And Vivian Arts, hello, who is the Chief Privacy Officer of Refinitiv, who is living and breathing these cybersecurity issues. Thank you to our panelists for joining us today. So we'll start with the first question. Of course, it seems that all the winners of the current environment have long been users of the AI technology, even if they may be rather simple. So we all have experience with Netflix and Amazon's recommendation engines. They take our watching or purchasing behaviors on their platform and give us what else could be useful for us. Google and Facebook users also take their behavior data used to predict or analyze the trends for life-changing events and healthcare issues. So we'll go first to Christina. Christina, would you please shed some light on what some of the existing use cases of AI in law are right now? And if you could also please comment on the transparency and issues around bias you've seen in AI implementation.
Okay, Simone, thank you very much to all the organisers. It's great to be here. And I am a lawyer, and so we'll talk about my legal experience. And AI in law is known as law tech, and it is a hugely expanding industry. We reckon it's worth about $16 billion at the moment, and that's growing rapidly. And what it's doing is changing the way that traditional legal services are delivered. So some of the use cases are around things like drafting documents. Legal research is often undertaken now in an automated way, analyzing contracts or actually any big data set to look for outliers. An interesting use case which is starting to be developed is in the area of predictive analytics. So using prediction tools with the computing power that we have and the big data to be able to predict outcomes of court hearings. And that's quite an interesting area of development. But AI is also being used to help citizens to deliver legal advice and to offer online dispute resolution in such a way that we hope will be empowering for people. So I can see that AI use in law could really start to deliver some significant social benefits in increasing access to justice for everybody and empowering individuals and small businesses to be able to resolve their own issues without perhaps needing to go to court or to the law. And this is all really, really great. However, of course, there are some real concerns here in the unmoderated use of the technologies, and I'm particularly thinking about the use of algorithms in and machine learning and decision making, and this really throws up some ethical issues. One of the government panels that I chair has an ethics unit, and we're very concerned about these ethical issues. And just to flag two at this point, if I might. The first really is around the way that algorithms effectively encode assumptions and develop systematic patterns, and this can result in discriminatory outputs. What do I mean by that? First of all, the data that is being input is inevitably biased. It reflects society and all the biases and all the issues and problems that we have in society. And this has a documented negative impact on those with protected characteristics. And then the way that that data is labeled, is measured and is classified is subjective. It's down to the person who is who is undertaking that exercise, and that can then embed the bias into the decision making of the algorithm. You add to that my second concern, which is a lack of transparency, a lack of understandability, if you like, and the fact that there are very few people, and certainly none of us ordinary citizens, who are able to understand how an algorithm has made a decision. And in law, the impact of that could be that people are not able to bring cases to court against algorithmic decisions because they cannot understand or interpret or know whether that decision, they have a case in relation to that decision. My final issue around that is that even if you have a human in the loop, so even if you have a human being as part of the decision making, a lot of the research that we have done in relation to the issue of use of algorithms in the criminal justice system, evidence that police officers felt unable quite often. They lacked the experience, the qualification, the confidence to override algorithmic decisions. So there are a whole load of ethical considerations that we really need to address before we sleepwalk into any potential dystopian future. And we as academics, as those who are interested in this area, need to be shouting about it.
Amazing. I had no idea that there were lots of these issues with regards to, of course, implementing the technology into the justice system gives us so much thought in terms of what we need to be thinking about. We, of course, all know of the fail stories, and this leads straight into this topic and the limitations, if you will. And, you know, I mean, we all have experience of speaking to Alexa about, you know, things that we want her to do, but then, you know, her not necessarily responding the way that you would like it to. You know, you can ask Alexa for jokes, but she does not laugh at your jokes. And if did happen that might be quite scary. Personally, my favorite one is Amazon's AI recruiting tool, which went live and had to be shut down immediately after, because the data that was fed into it was, historic and discriminatory. And Hepsi, you're the CEO of Equality Group and a big advocate of diversity. What are some of your fail stories in AI, and what does this tell us about where we can take it to? Have we reached limits of what we can do with AI already, and where are some of the new opportunities? I also think, given the unprecedented unemployment numbers that we've been seeing on the back of COVID-19, automating certain HR processes could be a key initiative for businesses and people. So it'd be great to hear your thoughts on what's the latest here.
Thanks, Simone. Yeah, I think on the AI stories, the Amazon one is worth looking at in a bit more detail, because, as you say, there, immediately after launch, Reuters picked up on this last year, that the recruitment tool was inherently biased because it had been based on historic tenure data of resumes that they'd received, and they were overwhelmingly male, and the tool ended up discriminating against women's clubs and also certain colleges that women had gone to. And so it was pulled, which was good. And I think what it shows us is the issue around data gaps in data that would be able to properly educate and inform the AI that's being built, and ensure that we're not perpetuating existing biases that exist. There is actually great research out there for how you de-bias the recruiting process. I wouldn't say there's a fix-all or go-to AI tool yet for that, but there's certainly pieces of technology based upon the great academic research that's out there that can help remove, or at least mitigate to some extent, human bias in recruitment decision-making processes. And so some of that would be looking at things like blind screening, so removing some of those signifying factors up front and reducing the number of initial gut decisions that can be made on someone by how they look or even their accent. So blind screening and skills-based assessment is very good. Structured interviews and making sure that you've got a sort of wisdom of the crowd around decisions being made on individuals. And there are tools that exist out there to help support those processes or speed them up, automate them to a certain extent. But I have not come across a tool that could definitely do it without any bias inbuilt. And I think it was quite telling to see, you read Laszlo Bock's book, Work Rules, that Google was just doing certain aspects of it and continuously trying to be conscious of where bias might be coming into the system. So I think there are opportunities, but they come with a health warning and with an ethical flag around them. But there's some great things on applied and gap jumpers if people want to read up more. And our own website, we also have research on this about debiasing the recruitment and hiring process. There's still more work to be done further along the talent journey in terms of retention, promotion, how do you debias review processes. There's a huge amount still to be done there. But I think on the recruitment side, there's been some good progress and technology where it's there to, based on good data-backed research, debias the process, seems to be having some positive effects.
Amazing. I think it's obviously, great to see progress there, but still a lot to go. Of course, having been at big organizations all my career, I can totally relate to the importance of the performance management system. And it kind of brings us back to the point about, would we be more comfortable being managed by a robot than a person? How do we take and with the robot, of course, that's unbiased, which is kind of the topic of discussion today. And, Hepsi, you've mentioned also a couple of times the data gap. And I think, data collection and the fair representation and the categorization is another very crucial, important aspect of this AI debate. And, and how we allocate responsibility is at the heart of ethics and fairness concerns with regards to artificial intelligence. So Vivian, of course, you're part of many data and insight strategies committees in the UK and in Europe. What are you seeing in terms of privacy and security concerns surrounding personal data, and how we should be thinking about transparency in AI implementation?
Well, that isn't a small question at all, is it? It's a very big question. There is an awful lot going on, and I think we just need to sort of take a step back a little bit, perhaps, and look at the bigger picture as well. So, why is everyone excited about it? And the reason is that AI is becoming a larger part of all of our lives all of the time. There are big innovations in terms of AI, but there's also small innovations in terms of AI. And they aren't necessarily small innovations. It's just that AI is becoming an increasingly significant part of all of our lives, whether or not we acknowledge it. So with the Internet of Things, it is pervading everything that we're doing. There was a recent PwC estimate that AI could add up to 15.7 trillion to the global economy by 2030. Now, that is a pre-COVID statistic, so it might need a bit of pulling down now, but that is hugely significant. But where are we in terms of AI and privacy? And I think it's really interesting to see how the debate is evolving. And when it comes to privacy, if privacy pervades just everything that we do, whether it's public or private, so whether it's in our work capacity or our public capacity or in our private lives as well. And what we're seeing is a very significant debate taking place around the ethics of AI. So it is not just a debate around the technicalities of it, but it's now a debate around, should we actually be doing it? And should we have ethical standards that regulate how we do AI? So the EU has actually put together ethics guidelines for trustworthy AI, and they fall into 4 types of principles. That all AI should be based on fundamental rights, which has respect for human autonomy as a pillar. It should be focused on the prevention of harm. It should be fair, and it should be explicable. And that means it should be understandable, as the case may be. And it's not just the EU, the OECD has principles for AI, and the G20 has principles for AI, and we're seeing increasingly the ethical debate around AI, which is, it might be possible, but should we be doing it anyway? Because technology and automation is allowing us to do things that we weren't able to do before. So AI enables us to process with greater efficiency and accuracy, to process larger amounts of data, to create new business models, to increase quality and speed of existing activities, whether that's management or fraud prevention or compliance. It helps us to better predict outcomes and behaviors with increased accuracy and speed. It enables us to do so very much, but as with everything, it is a tool, and it can also be used for harm. And so it's interesting to see that debate now taking place. The other one, the point just to make is that so much of what we do in terms of AI, when we actually think of the model, is that you need data to inform the algorithm, which then comes up with the output. And what Hempe was saying is that the challenge that we're facing is that we might appear to have a huge amount of data out there, lots of statistics about how much data is available. But the challenge we're finding with AI, because it can accumulate so much data, operate at so much speed, and deliver much more precise results, is that if that data is flawed or incomplete or biased, then the outcomes will reflect the same limitations, but at an exponential way. And so some of the challenges we have at the moment is that we have plenty of data about the average man, about right-handed people, which is, terrific. But what we don't have a lot of data about is about women, it's about children, it's about elderly people, left-handed people, and all sorts. So it's what we actually need to do, I think, in terms of the AI to ensure better fairness, and also in order to better comply with those ethical norms which we're beginning to explore a lot more deeply now, is to actually start looking at what are the building blocks out there. And we have been collecting data about things that reflect our cultural bias, our legal system, and the environment in which we have been operating. But that, we know, excludes many people. And actually what we should be doing is re-looking at our data and making sure that that is complete and fair.
As you were talking, Vivian, it reminded me of the book Invisible Women. Of course, you know, in our previous conversations, we have discussed the gap that exists for women across all sectors, actually, really, and you know how you know throughout history that has been a problem, and hopefully, you know, with this big data revolution, we can address that head on. Of course, you know, one of the key aspects, and Vivian, you hit on this quite well just now, of today's topics is inclusion. And, you know, we've got quite a powerhouse of women leaders here on the panel today. You know, I think it's fair to say that across all our sectors, whether it's law, security, banking, and finance, underrepresentation of women have long been a problem, which we might want to call it systemic. Can I please ask for your favorite gender AI stories and how they, you know, have been shaped in the current environment? You know, I can start with Emilia Clarke. She's got a little project with Getty Images. She's for those who don't watch Netflix series, it's the Game of Thrones actress, the super blonde lady. She's working on stock of photos for women in leadership positions. And apparently this was a result of someone Googling leadership and having been inundated with Davids and Johns and Sue type of images. You know, and I keep reading articles saying that, you know, the pandemic and it'll disproportionately impact women and girls, firstly due to there being big representation in caregiving capacity. But on the other hand, you know, some of the world's women leaders are handling the situation much better than the others, such as the Prime Minister of New Zealand and Finland. Can you all please shed some light on what you're seeing currently and where your focus is? I know it's, you know, kind of two-pronged questions. One on gender AI stories, that's of your choice, and two on pandemic and its impact on women. Christina, maybe we should start with you. Oh, you're on mute.
I was trying to be good. Sadly, there are so many stories in my own profession of law, despite the fact that women have been the majority of the new entrants into our profession for decades now and represent well over half of practicing lawyers. If you look at the top echelons of our profession, so partners, let's say, in private practice, you will struggle to find more than 10 to 50% female ownership. So, and I think, you know, our profession is not alone in that. Unfortunately, there are many examples across the world. And as you say, I want to just, anybody who hasn't read Caroline Criado Perez's book, Invisible Women, I highly recommend, I think we all highly recommend that, because that evidences in terms of the data that we use, and I'll come back to data usage if I might, but the data that we use, from stab vests to crash test dummies to, you know, the size of our mobile phone to drugs doses, to medical treatments, you know, all of that is designed for men, and hence the title Invisible Women. So I think we have a massive problem with data. The first massive problem with data is that actually we are not good at all at collating data in any sensible way that we can that machines can read, understand, and give us insight about that data. So that's the first big problem. The second major problem is that the data is not reflective, as Vivian was saying, of particularly of people with protected characteristics. So women, BAME people, disabled people, the old, the very young, we are invisible in terms of the data. And where we do appear, we appear in very stereotypical roles. And that again embeds bias assumption into AI decision making. So I think that we've got dozens of examples. We're not short of examples of where this is happening. My interest actually is what we do about it. And I've seen some really good data cleansing work that has been going on, and the opportunity here is not just to ensure that we are being fair, but actually algorithmic decision making could be fairer than decision making by human beings, and and that's what excites me. So and a lot of that work is around reversing assumptions. So if you have a cohort of men and a cohort of women, then you reverse the gender on those two cohorts and see if you come up with different outcomes from the algorithmic analysis. It's not overly challenging. It's just not being done often enough.
Amazing. Hepsi?
Yeah, I think an interesting story that also opens up another point around considerations of how AI isn't a sort of fix-all solution, and thinking around flexibility of design, is the story of Uber's facial recognition software that suspended trans people's accounts because they were confused about their gender. And one of the solutions proposed was, okay, we need to get more data, we need to fix this problem and get more data as people are transitioning to understand, to get our facial recognition technology to be able to pick up on that. But the issue with that is that that's a very, very sensitive time for an individual. And actually, sometimes people want to remain invisible. They don't want to share their data. There's a reason why they're called protected characteristics. And so actually, maybe an option there was more around flexibility of ID verification and not just dependence on one system, which is facial recognition. And so that's quite an interesting debate, I think, about product design and different users. But that, I think is a good story to open that up for people.
Great. What about you, Vivian?
Well, I'll pick up on the theme of facial recognition, but with a slightly different angle. And this one, Simone, supports the which you made earlier, which was actually an IBM piece of research in 2019, where the researcher went online to search for images, facial recognition for CEOs. And in that particular search, the result was all white and one woman who happened to be Barbie, as in the Barbie doll. Equally disappointed.
Barbie.
So there we go. It's difficult to come up with examples of when AI doesn't work. One that stuck in my mind, which again, it's a try and fail and try again, was the Tay tweets incident, when Tay, the chatterbot, was released in 2016, and she soon then began to come out with a lot of inflammatory and offensive tweets through the Twitter account. And the reason is that it learned through engagement with people, and so trolls immediately recognized if I say nasty things to her, then I can get her to say nasty and ugly things back to me, because she's learning that this is the language of use. So that she had to be removed ASAP, because obviously that one backfired in a major way. And I think for me, it's a lesson around artificial intelligence, which is it is a tool. I think that we need to be very careful as we go down this journey, but let's not stop. We recognize what artificial intelligence can do, but we're not quite at Skynet and the big computer hell yet. At the moment, it's still around automation, machine learning, predictability, and self-learning, which is really interesting and important, and it comes with new threats and challenges, and we need to be open to addressing those quickly and efficiently, holding in our minds some good principles as we develop. But I don't think that we should be aiming for perfection, because we are the creators of AI and we are imperfect. And how do we set about creating something that is perfect from our imperfect minds and our obviously imperfect data as well? So that would be sort of my my AI reflection. With regard to COVID-19 and the pandemic, it's interesting, the same things come up time and time again, and we're endlessly surprised. We're endlessly surprised that, oh my goodness, the impact for women of a pandemic like this is going to be more significant than it is for men, because women hold down more part-time roles. Women tend to have more care and responsibilities. Women tend to be in the front line of nursing. There are more nurses who are women than are men. And as a result, they are more exposed, both in terms of job security as well as in terms of contact with the virus. So what's interesting, of course, is that women seem to also have a higher level of immunity to the virus. It seems to be impacting them, or rather there are fewer recorded deaths of women than men. Again, we have to recognize that the recording of deaths from COVID-19 is quite challenging, because we don't necessarily know whether it's been another underlying condition or COVID-19 that has caused a death. But just in terms of the work environment, again, with so many of us now working remotely, is to recognize that women do between 8 and 10 times more unpaid work around the household than men do. And interesting to see surveys where men and women are asked about, how much do you do at home? And men will say, I do half of the homeschooling. And then you ask the lady of the house, and she's like, he does about a fifth of the homeschooling. There's a big difference between perceptions in terms of what that contribution is as well, which we need to address. But the challenge is that when women are taking up what has been considered, and let's be honest about it, gendered work, that what it does do is make them less available to actually do the other work. And I think what we need to be very careful of coming out of this crisis is that the lack of availability that women then have to be as effective in their day job as they are in their other jobs may also adversely impact their progression within business. So lots to think about there, and I think lots of things that we can be thoughtful and deliberate about as we navigate our way through this crisis and out the other side.
Can I say something about the crisis? I completely agree with Vivienne in terms of the current downsides for women. There's a really interesting early research about academics and in the United States, and the numbers of papers which have come to academic journals, and has significantly reduced in terms of female academics and has significantly increased in terms of male academics, and one assumes that is around responsibilities. So women are taking on more responsibilities at home, and men are relieved from their academic responsibilities to get down and sit and do the serious work. But I wanted to sound a note of optimism as well, because I think that it is unlikely we will return to pre-COVID working. It will change in terms of the way that we do business. And anything that disrupts the sort of presenteeism of the office and the natural biases in terms of affinity bias that creates by proximity. So just seeing other people who are like me and wanting to help and give them opportunities. The more that opens up opportunity for people who are not part of that traditional or dominant norm. So I think I'm really hopeful that as we disrupt and change the way that we do business, that will make it, level out the playing fields and make things fairer for women and for everyone else who haven't been on the same level to date.
Can I just jump in there, because I have serious concerns about this at the moment, because I think we have real systemic challenges going on, and we need good leadership, because ultimately change only comes from the top. Yeah. And I'm very concerned with the current government having suspended gender pay gap reporting this year as one of really the very few company compliance things that have been suspended. Even tax you have to report, even if you delay payment. Why that wasn't the case, I don't understand how it's happened, really. And at the same time, that's paired with amazing opportunity to fund innovation, and all the research shows that diversity and inclusion leads to greater innovation. There are more creativity when you get diversity around the table and you get different perspectives on problem solving. So if we want to be a great leader in innovation in the UK, and the government is releasing billions to fund that, why we haven't got a narrative and clear targets around diversity, I don't understand. And it's not happening. The leadership is not behind it. That's government. But in businesses, I think it's imperative for business leaders to take it seriously, to be very clear about what data they're capturing and what targets they're setting, because otherwise it's not just not going to happen. My fear is that we go backwards.
I have to agree with that. I mean, I've watched the gender pay gap reporting for the last 2 years with Hawkeye and with lots of interest, and for it to suddenly be suspended on the back of this is definite step backwards. And I do think that businesses, it's perhaps an opportunity for them to pick this up with their own hands, regardless of what the government might say, and really drive this forward.
Because actually, what we were meant to be getting is the race pay gap this year, and that there's no way that's happening, and so it puts so many people behind. This is not just a male-female debate at all.
Yeah, I think
you're absolutely right, because one can make out a hard-nosed business case for diversity and inclusion. You don't have to believe it in your heart as a business leader. It does equate with profitability. So it's still bemuses me why we're still having to bash on about it, but we are, and we do need to, because that message hasn't got through either to government or to captains of industry, not in serious numbers. This is why I looked to Vivian, because actually clients, certainly for referral businesses like the law, clients can be the real drivers of positive change in this. And I know Vivian's, well, we've respectively in our industries done a lot of work around trying to push that through pledges in my industry, which we created through charter in Vivian's industry. But we have to keep pushing, and now is a real opportunity, I think, to have that cut through in terms of it didn't actually work before. The new normal has to work, and work well for everybody.
Oh, I would agree, and just to echo what you said, Christina. You have the pledges within the legal profession. There's the Women in Finance Charter. certainly in the financial services sector. But I think we should look at this as an opportunity to deliver the structural change that will actually make a difference for everybody. If, here's the challenge, if we have been able to take so many roles and literally lift and shift from an in-office to a virtual environment in practice no time at all, addressing a whole range of practical challenges, whereas how can we have people working remotely? How can people in a regulated environment not actually be physically in the office? How are we going to deal with security and confidentiality, et cetera, et cetera? All the wheels on the bus are going to fall off if we have to make a big change overnight, and we managed it. A few bits and pieces fell off here and there, but it wasn't the end of the world. And I think the challenge for business leaders is actually, if we can do that with the challenges around physically working, then maybe we can actually focus our energies and get the job done on the D&I piece, because the benefits are absolutely clear and it's what the workforce wants.
Amazing. I mean, when we started this panel, I knew that we would run out of time before we knew it, and we now have a huge list of questions that came in from the audience, which we will not be able to cover all of it, but I do think that covering one or two could be a good idea, given that we got about 5 minutes left of this session. We did have a question from Pornia Lufra, who's from Denmark, and her question was kind of twofold, but what strategies would you recommend to avoid unconscious biases when using AI? Particularly around using AI in HR processes such as hiring. So I think, Hepsi, this might be perhaps what you alluded to earlier about different solutions that you're seeing. Perhaps if you can just walk us through one or two of those. And then kind of on the side, again, similar type of question, which is a lot of people in lockdown are, of course, wanting more human interactions more than ever before. What impact would you see that having on artificial intelligence? So Hepsi, perhaps we start with you and then we go to the other panelists.
Yeah, so I think the first thing to say around bias is that it's not all unconscious. Bias is on a spectrum and it is very individual. And there are many different types of biases. We sort of talk about 20 different biases during the recruitment process, but there will be many more. So the starting point is self-awareness, to understand what your biases are, and going on a bit of a journey around that. Do the implicit association test, do some more reading, understand how bias operates. It's not a good or a bad thing, it's just shortcuts in the brain. That's all it is. And you need to understand which shortcuts, first of all, your brain taking, and then what the brains around whatever process is happening might be taking, and what the consequences of those shortcuts are. And then you can begin to do some intelligent design work. So yeah, before building any of this technology, I would go on that sort of personal learning journey, and then a journey is a team who's designing it, and there are some brilliant resources out there to support that, and then I'm sure you'll be able to build good tech or integrate the good tech that is out there. So Dolly Choose, The Person You Mean to Be, I'll post it in the chat, brilliant book. Obviously Iris Bonet, What Works as well, is fantastic. So those are two good ones. I'll post them in the chat for you.
I think with regard to the algorithmic issue, there are now a number of what I would term fairness tools, and what they do is basically reverse engineer the data. So if you want to look at it through a gender perspective, then it would reverse or rather apply the female data to the male data and vice versa, and see if it came out with different recommendations. And if it does, then you've got a problem with your data. And then you have to go back and undertake a data cleansing exercise. Now, these things are that's the challenging part of it. That is really, really difficult. But it is, for me, it is heartening that these these tools are being developed. I agree entirely with Hepsi. The people who develop the tools, the people who make the decisions are people, are human beings, and we need to address our own biases, which we all have. And we're only really dangerous if we operate them when we are making decisions about other people. But we have to have that awareness of where our biases lie. But we can, as I say, we are developing tools which will enable us at least to identify where there is bias in algorithmic decision making, and that's really, really important.
Thank you.
It's very difficult to add anything more to all of that. I fundamentally agree. I think that's one of the only comment I would say is that being aware of the gaps in our data and the biases that we have is incredibly helpful to overcoming them. I think it's very difficult to change people. We can change structures, we can change behaviors, but I don't know if we can really change people per se, and we are kind of, that's our biology. But if we are aware and if we're deliberate and if we are clear on what our goals are, then I think we'll get there with the help of AI.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead, Christina.
The AI in lockdown, what has been transformative is this actually, which is hardly AI, but the ability to communicate remotely and effectively has been the big transformation piece. I think in law, what has been where the transformative change has been is in utilizing the technologies that we had that we weren't using before because we didn't really need to. And actually, the exciting piece will be when this sort of engagement communication technology reaches the next stage, and really makes us feel like we're in the same room with other people.
Amazing. Yeah, I think AR, VR, all the technology kind of comes to my mind as you're discussing. Thanks so much again for such insightful and interesting thoughts around rapidly developing world and technology and where we fit in it. It's been so much fun for me, and hope it was for you also. Special thanks to Professor Sanketh for having us today, and Hannah Webb, Rahul, and for making this session happen. Look forward to further debates this afternoon, and also to hear the pitches from the shortlisted companies for ideas to impact. Thanks everybody who's joined us and are live on YouTube and Facebook with us. Look forward to seeing you again soon at the next event. Hope you stay safe.
Thank you so much, Simon. Thank you so much, Christina, Hepsi, and Vivian. It was a pleasure having you here, but we will definitely love to have you at Imperial as well. And thank you so much, Simon. It was a fantastic one, and I can see a number of questions that are appearing. And to all the audience who are watching us, please note some of the information and links provided by the panel. They are extremely useful. And if you have a follow-up questions or something that you are curious about, do let us know. We as a team are trying to collate them and trying to pass it on, because that's the dialogue that we are hoping to achieve with the industry as well. So thank you so much, panel. The next, we want to start with let's take a 5-minute break, come back, and then let's listen to all the amazing entrepreneurs. I call them the entrepreneurs already. It's just the ideas that we want to talk about. So please take a comfort break, trying to come, but let's start at 2 o'clock sharp. We'll see Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Hope you got your coffee and you're ready for the real thing. We have some exciting lineup of all students coming in and trying to talk about their amazing startup ideas. So just to give you a brief introduction, Ideas to Impact Challenge is a way of trying to talk about student ideas which are going to impact 1 million lives. And the idea being these ideas that have been shortlisted to present today are the ones which have the potential to impact 1 million lives. And that would be the case for all of us to work it out. And so we will have a panel of 5 judges, which we have mentioned. So they're going to be a seed fund provided by the team and the regular mentoring that we are going to provide as an academics, but we will also get industry people excited and involved in these student ideas. Again, the idea being more and more people get involved with the ideas, we can make more impact. And that's the key idea, because we don't want student ideas to remain ideas. We want to support as the center itself to support throughout the impact stage. And what we also know that's the time when they really need support when they're starting up. So what we have a bunch of 6 in particular teams that are going to compete for these 3 prizes. We have an order which we would be going with. We will request all the judges to be visible, but their audios to be off at this time. The only person who would actually be presenting from the team will have their audios on too. And the idea would be simple. We will have an order. We have given them 5 minutes to prepare for this thing, and we're going to have 5 minutes to actually ask questions later. So without further ado, let me start by inviting representative from Humanity, and you have your 10 minutes. So I'm going to turn off my audio, but will be visible. Over to you. Yes, Tina, you're ready to go?
Yes, can you hear me good?
Yes.
Okay, I'm ready to start. Hello, I'm Chief Tea Officer Tina, and I'm a huge tea fanatic. One day I pondered this question: what if my daily cuppa could help humanity? And today I want to ask you the same question. What if your daily cup of tea could positively impact 1 million lives? In the UK, 84% of the population drink tea daily. That adds up to 36 billion cups of tea consumed per year. But unfortunately, many tea bags contain plastics. In fact, 96% of tea consumed in the UK is from a tea bag. Scientists at McGill University revealed that brewing a single plastic tea bag released 11.6 billion microplastics into your cup of tea. I did some basic calculations and found that over 400 billion microplastics are consumed per year in the UK. What does that mean? It means negative impact to the environment due to single-use plastics from tea bags and negative impact to our health from consuming so many microplastics. But don't worry, we have the perfect solution. Introducing the UK's first ready-to-drink plant-based tea lattes. Our teas come from fair trade organic farms from Rwanda, Japan, and South Africa. We brew our teas fresh and mix it with creamy oat milk and a bit of agave, and bottled it into a 100% recyclable aluminum can. We chose to use oat milk because it is one of the most eco-friendly milks available out there. Just by switching from dairy milk to oat milk, we can decrease the annual greenhouse gas emissions by 3.5 times, and we can decrease the water use annually up to 13 times. But I didn't forget you coffee drinkers out there. As you can see here, the amount of emissions produced from 1 cup of coffee is significantly higher than the amount of emissions produced from 1 cup of tea. Just by switching from coffee to tea, we can save over 9 billion kilograms of annual greenhouse gas emissions. Now, let's get down to business. As a social enterprise, we follow a triple bottom line business model supporting people and planet. For B2C, we've been selling at Borough Market for the past year. We've also done pop-ups across London. This summer, we plan on selling on Amazon. From B2B, we've been selling at Imperial College London, and we work with Feeder, Uber Eats, and Deliveroo. Below the dash line are companies that we starting to talk with and also are interested in getting stocked in. For example, we talked with the buyer from Japan Center, and they're interested in stocking our products once we move to contract manufacturing. But most importantly, what is our social impact? Currently on the Cambridge Social Ventures program, we've successfully embedded into our Articles of Association a mission lock, which is to donate 5% or more of post-tax profit to well-being and sustainability initiatives. This year, we've also been involved in circular economy and social innovation programs. At the beginning of March, we successfully launched a crowdfunding campaign where we were able to donate 5% of our total raise to the World Health Organization and UN Foundation's COVID-19 Solidarity Fund. And who are the humans behind humanity? We have Alex, who is our marketing advisor, and Anika, who is helping with social media. In the middle, we have Isabel, Annalise, and Eleanor from University of Cambridge performing market research. Tanaka is helping with web design, and Quinn is a quality management engineer providing knowledge on contract manufacturing. At the bottom, we have our advisors and mentor. Karen's from Cambridge Social Ventures, and she has provided us with knowledge on how to have good governance and how to have good financial modeling. Marissa has prior experience working at PepsiCo, where she was leading the category growth for Lipton iced tea. And Sam is our mentor. He has his own pancake factory, and he has been growing it for over 16 years. So he has been really key in providing us with operational knowledge on how to grow and scale a business overseas with long-term visions in place. I'm Chief Tea Officer Tina. I did my MBA at Imperial College Business School. Prior to that, I was working at Accenture. So I made a huge career jump from IT to just tea, and humanity was born. As a graduate entrepreneur, I'm still very actively involved at Imperial. I act as a mentor for the We Innovate program supporting female entrepreneurs. So what are we asking for today? How can you help humanity? With the £7,000 seed funding, we'll be able to grow our social impact. We want to increase our contract manufacturing and brand awareness through effective marketing. We're also asking for support with your network. We want to get connected with experts in scaling social enterprises and beverage companies. And everyone in the audience who's interested in what we're doing here at Humanity, we'd love to welcome you as brand ambassadors. So hopefully I've convinced you today that your daily cuppa can help humanity. So let's take a sip together towards a better tea, a tea that's good for humanity. Thank you so much for your time. Alex, our marketing advisor, and I welcome your questions. Let's stay connected. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tina. Can I now request for questions, please? Please unmute yourself.
I have a question. Is there any customer feedback on what the tea actually tastes like?
Yes, that's what we have been doing over Borough Market for the past year. So by providing samples at the farmers markets, we've been able to get really good feedback. Most people say that it actually tastes like tea, and that's because most of the tea beverages that we have in the market are actually very high in sugar, and they use tea concentrate and tea extract. We're one of the special companies that actually use the tea and brew it fresh. So you get that tasty tea flavor in your beverage.
Hi, Tina. This is Megan. It looks fantastic, but I had a question that was back on one of the slides about the impact. It was the one where you showed the greenhouse gas, I think, savings from moving to a regular cup of tea to humanity. Is this eliminating, is it the difference if you eliminate a cup of tea or if you move to drinking one of humanity? Underneath my question is curiosity about what the impact of the can is with the recycling, the impact from recycling the can.
Is it this slide that you're talking about?
I think it was one just moving from, sorry, it may have been one before that, but just talking about the savings from the environmental savings from switching to tea. There we go. In terms of the environmental savings, are you considering the impact of using the can and the recycling that comes with recycling the can? I'm just wondering how you built that in.
Yes, of course. So this is basically based on the number of tea drunk in tea bags in the UK multiplied by the number of microplastics. So this is simply showing that most of the tea consumed in the UK do have plastic, and that accounts to over 400 billion microplastics. But what this means for us is that we don't use any plastics in our tea, and our packaging is also plastic free. So we're removing the plastic, single-use plastics which harm the environment.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Tina. Wonderful presentation. And I got a question around your go-to-market strategy as well as how you see a COVID might have an impact on your go-to-market strategy. And I'm aware that the drinks is a very competitive market. So, like, what do you think made you outstanding and the unique selling point? I mean, it's pretty much clear there, but I think it's really around what the channels that you're going to prioritize. And do you see the current macro environment would have a like negative or positive or what opportunity like imposed for the business?
Yeah, definitely. This is a difficult time for many businesses. We actually chose this time to do a crowdfunding campaign, which we launched on the beginning of March. So we've been using this time during lockdown to plan for summer production. We have manufacturers in place and plan to launch this summer and to sell on Amazon. We believe online sales is key right now as more and more people are shopping online. It is very likely that in the future, many of us will continue shopping online going forward. So we're actually really looking forward to selling on Amazon and other online grocery stores like Ocado and perhaps delivery platforms like FarmDrop.
All right, I think the time is up. Thank you so much, Tina. That was really useful. Can I request a team fresh pack to come, please?
Hi, good afternoon.
Yeah, you have the screen. Can you share the screen and start from there, please?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, wait a sec. Can you see the screen?
I'm sorry, but I think the screen is banned. We haven't got any permission.
All right, Hannah, Yin, can you please help give them power as well, please? We all need power in virtual world.
Can you try again now, please?
Yes.
It should give you the option.
Well,
at the bottom.
I think it is still banned.
Sorry, can you set Wenfei Ji as the co-chair?
What is the name, sorry?
Wenfei Ji, W-E-N-F-E-I.
I've got you.
Okay, thank you so much.
No worries. Try that now.
Okay. Thank you. So can you see the screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, here we go. Good afternoon, everyone. We're FreshPack. Well, before we start, can I ask you a question? Imagine when you're in the middle of something, or just too lazy to cook, what would you do? Probably order a food delivery, and I would do the same. And actually, that's what I got a couple weeks ago. The food was pretty good, but as you can see, they used 5 plastic boxes in one order. And I feel super guilty for that. And things are even worse in Asia now. Take China, for example. There are more than 300 million food delivery app users, consuming 60 million plastic containers per day. And that will produce 100,000 tons of plastic waste in a year, which accounts to 1% of world total. That's a lot. And you may wonder, why don't they just use eco-friendly containers? The answer is actually quite straightforward, because they are too expensive, usually 5 times more than plastic ones. And for those affordable alternatives like paper boxes, usually they are not suitable for many cuisines that have hot soup or oil. Although those restaurants are encouraged to switch to eco-friendly alternatives, when they are still struggling to survive, actually they don't care that much about the environment. So we think this market needs us. We're going to provide eco-friendly food packaging solutions to deliver businesses. Since we use 100% biodegradable materials, it's totally clean. And also our material has a similar performance to plastic, so it's suitable for all restaurants to use. And most importantly, it's free. But as I mentioned, those food containers are supposed to be very expensive. Then how could we make it free? Here comes our business model innovation. We're gonna cooperate with manufacturers and send out food containers to small restaurants for free and charge bigger restaurants with low price. Mostly, we're gonna generate our revenue from advertisers. We're gonna put their ads on our boxes and deliver to consumers through the restaurants. Also, we're gonna set up an online platform to connect closely with these parties, especially the end users, to retain the market to our brand. But having the business model, we also wanted to know whether it's gonna work or not. So we created these two image prototypes and conducted interviews and experiments. We proved some of our assumptions on desirability with our stakeholders. And also we reached out to some manufacturers to test feasibility and potential cooperation.
To start making the impact, we would first focus on China, where more than 300 billion plastic food containers are consumed per year. Hopefully, if we could gain 1% of the individual restaurants in market share in Wuhan and Chengdu, then we could impact 3.5 million people. With each box we send out, we can reduce a bit of world plastic waste. Our materials are made from starch. Compared with plastic, which needs 200 years to break down, our biodegradable containers could completely go back to nature as carbon dioxide and water within 6 months. In the long run, we plan to innovate on our own products by using byproducts, so as to fully use agricultural waste and produce stronger boxes. Beyond that, since we only use raw materials from plant, we would engage farmers through strategic cooperations and involve other parties into our ecosystem to expand the impact scope. By providing affordable green product, we aim to both increase people's environmental awareness and change their consumption behavior. Step by step, we hope one day we could replace plastic not only in China, but also in other plastic-dependent countries. Finally, here comes our team. We've got backgrounds in business, food science, and material, and also experiences in startup, big firms, and even United Nations. But most importantly, we're a group of people with dream. So far, we have received some help on business model and material development, and also established partnerships with restaurant platform, media, charity, and designers. With your support, we hope to contribute to a more sustainable world. Thank you, and welcome to Contact and welcome for the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. May I please request all the jury members to unmute and ask your questions?
I can start off. Do you have any IP surrounding the actual process of building the packaging?
We don't have the IP for now. Like the new material is still under the development. We have built some partnership with some institutions in China and also like some universities in UK. So we're co-creating this new material. But because we think of before we have this, our ideal material, we can still start to do this business right now. So maybe right now we won't use the material. We want to include all the byproduct, all the agricultural waste. But for now, they have some like other alternatives. They are still biodegradable, and we want to use those packages to first start.
Thank you.
Hey, just to follow up, yeah, I think from my view, this is really more of an innovation on the business model rather than the innovation on the material itself. I'm really interested in hearing more about the unit economics, and without going to a lot of details, but I just interesting to know that have you done the work around how much it's going to cost to produce a box like that, and have you do the test on the clients, how much they are willing to pay? And I think traditionally you see the cost per impression, and does this work in this model as well? I mean, how how receptive your client will be willing to adapt into this new model. Will be interesting to hear that.
Okay. Actually, we have already done some of the experiment and interviews about this. So firstly, we connected with several manufacturers and find the lowest price, to give a comparison. Like for the plastic box, it's about 3 pence per box, and for the biodegradable one, it's about 10 pence. So it's about like 4 to 5 times this kind of things. And for this biodegradable things, like actually first we want to offer to the small restaurants like for free. They could just use it because we'll print some advertises on it. But during our experiment, we found like the small restaurants also have willing to pay. It's as long as the price is not higher than their plastic ones. So maybe they could cover about 2 to 3 pence of this cost of the box. And then the rest part is will be covered by the advertisement. We did some interviews and experiment with them, and they are willing to pay this part. And to add on, we also like want to provide an extra value for them. It's our online platform. So maybe in the future they would like to pay more for like a more spread advertisement.
Great, thanks.
Apologies if I missed this bit. I appreciate how much testing you've done of this, and wondered from an advertiser perspective, have you done testing to see what types of advertisers, their willingness to pay for this? What's the appetite of organizations to advertise on your product?
Yeah, as we said, we're still in the process of doing the experiment and the interviews. But so far, we have done some with some private institutions, like the studio that teach others to like play piano, or language studios, and also some kind of agencies that help you to do job applications and maybe rent house. Those we reached some advertisers in that industry, and they show their willingness to cooperate with us.
Great, thanks.
I think that's about it. Thank you so much, Team Freshpack. It was lovely. Can I request Team Comfort Break to please appear?
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
And you, thanks.
Hello.
Yes, Hansa and Sam. Good to see you too. So one of you can share your screen, and you will have all the controls from now on. Thank you.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Cool. Okay, so I'm ready to start. Comfort Break is a social enterprise catalyzing positive change through innovation in women's health. We are tackling the problem of incontinence. Oops. I'm not able to click to the next slide. Please give me a moment.
No problem. No problem. Just see what's going on. Okay. Yeah.
I'm still not able to control the slides. I'm so sorry. Okay. I'll just use this at the bottom. All right. Stop. Reset. Right. So as I was saying, we are tackling the global problem of incontinence. Across the world, all of the incontinent people put together could form the world's third largest country after India and China. And 80% of these people are women, because incontinence is a frequent byproduct of pregnancy. But whereas women in Western countries have access to a number of off-the-shelf solutions to deal with their daily or weekly urine leaks, imagine the challenge for women in South Sudan, ravaged by decades of civil war. Here, 1 million Sudanese women are affected by urinary incontinence, but a majority of them have never received any form of education. Half the teenage girls are married off, often forcibly, and encouraged to have as many pregnancies as possible. This leads to 5,000 new cases each year of obstetric fistula that further contributes to urine leaks. And yet, these girls have access only to rags, leaves, and ash to deal with the wetness of urine leaks during pregnancy and of blood from periods in between pregnancies. So, girls like Aminata, unable to afford current solutions, face day in, day out shame, discomfort, and risk of infections. At Comfort Break, we are not only delivering an innovative hygiene product, but also aiming to empower these women to build and sell our product themselves so that they may earn an income, be more financially independent, and lift themselves out of the inequalities they are facing. Our product is affordable and accessible, gives a dry feel for a healthier individual, is reusable and sustainable. Our value proposition addresses not one, but 9 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals to transform our world. Comfort Break's business model is two-sided. On the left, we rely on strategic partnerships with NGOs and corporate donors to subsidize the product for the women in local African communities, shown on the right. The global market share for disposable incontinence products is dominated by Western countries. Egypt and South Africa account for just 5% of the market share, and Comfort Break can capture 1% of the market by specifically targeting African countries that do not have access to incontinence products. At Comfort Break, we are adopting a blue ocean strategy, which allows us to operate in an uncontested market space, as alternatives are simply either unaffordable or not reusable or made from materials with a high carbon cost. So far, we have received interest from a number of individuals and organizations with an established value chain in countries similar to South Sudan. We have continued to perform user interviews with people from such countries and research materials to continually improve our prototype. We aim to deliver our first batch of sample prototypes to beneficiaries in early 2021. Our team consists of myself, an entrepreneurial fellow and scientist, Ehis, an MBA graduate with over half a decade of experience delivering health tech projects, and a design engineer with extensive experience in building products to benefit communities. We've also been continually receiving feedback and advice from a business coach, gynecologist, and a design expert, as well as having access through a variety of institutions to several other domain-specific expertise. What we need is £10,000. We've already raised about 1,000, but by going further, the I2I funds will enable us to continue product development and even travel to our target country to gain first-hand feedback and insight into how to improve our prototype. At Comfort Break, we believe that it is not enough to just stare up the steps. We must climb up the steps. So I hope that you would join us in catalyzing positive change through innovation in women's health. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hansa, for your presentation. Jury members, please unmute and any questions? Janine, I see you have unmuted yourself.
Could you explain more how the women in the countries that you're targeting can earn money from the business model?
Does my co-founder Ehis want to try to take that question?
Yes. Hello, everyone. So what we are trying to do is simplify our manufacturing process on how we make this pad. So these pads are easily manufactured. So that means they can be made locally in the country. So by teaching the women how to make these pads, and we buy off these pads from the women and take it to other regions or other communities, that's the way we enable these women make an income within our business model.
Thank you.
I have one more question about the business model. It looked like there was some reliance on subsidies, and I wondered, is this just for launch, or on an ongoing basis would the cost of each product be reliant on continued subsidies from NGOs and corporate organizations?
So I think it will be continuous. So the plan is to work with strategic partners, certain NGOs that have budgets in women's health and want to address some of the poverty in these communities, to subsidize these pads or to buy these pads to give these women in need that are unable to afford it. In the long run, our plan is to be able to get the pads, make enough pads that when we sell it to the NGOs, we can generate revenue and continue that business model of just setting up more manufacturing pop-ups in these communities.
Great.
And I'd also like to take the opportunity to emphasize that the product itself is a lot more affordable than anything else on the market, even without the subsidies. And that allows us to be really useful and valuable to our strategic partners over a long period of time.
Great. Yeah.
Great, thanks for your presentation. It was very interesting, and I think it's my question also around the business model. Same with my fellow doers, that I think it remains a little bit unclear if that what's your the go-to-market strategy, if it's all sort of B2B2C channel, that's through the partnership with NGO, because I imagine the way of go-to-market in those countries will be very, very different with what's happening here. And it will be really interesting to hear, your insights on that front.
Yeah. So our go-to-market strategy is working with specific NGOs that are present in selected countries, selected conflict countries. So the two countries we're initially targeting are South Sudan and Malawi. We are constantly in engagement with the MSF, who give us a presence into South Sudan and are ready to order these pads when they're ready, as the MSF are present in a lot of communities in South Sudan. There are also charities that operate in Malawi that we're also in engagement with and we're speaking to, that already buy pads from here and send it across to Malawi. So we will be providing those pads to these church organizations moving forward. The plan is to go to these communities and build relationships, and in turn also set up facilities where they can manufacture those pads locally, and then move across different communities in these countries. And from there, move across to other countries that need similar products and set up a presence moving forward.
Right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Any last question for the team? Maybe I can quickly ask, could you just elaborate a bit about the competition? Because there are a lot of companies working on similar products and at different stages of product development. So just elaborate a bit about similar companies and how do you plan to manage them?
Yeah, so thank you. If you look at our Blue Ocean strategy, there are currently companies that make disposable pads that are not cost effective for these women because they don't specifically target these communities. So that's a challenge. And we've looked at also reusable products which are made out of cloth, but at the same time are very expensive for these women. So how we address our competitors is by making our product more cost effective, but also reusable, and using local materials that are eco-friendly. So that's how we capture the market opportunity and stay ahead of our competitors.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we're already overrun. Thank you, team, and we'll go to the next one now.
Thank you, Team Comfort Break. Coming up next is Third Eye Intelligence. Please come online. Will be visible.
I'm here. Do you want to proceed with me sharing the screen or?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
I can't. It says host is disabled. You would have to make me a host before I continue.
Yeah. Give us a moment, please.
No problem.
Thanks, Sam. That should be done now.
Yeah, I am. Are you able to see?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just start the slideshow. When shall I begin? Or shall I just begin whenever I feel fine?
Yes, you are ready to go.
So hi, my name is Sam, and let me tell you how my grandfather inspired me to start Third Eye. About a year ago, he was admitted to intensive care for a heart attack where he was monitored 24/7. But he developed further complications, and with no clear cause pinpointed, it unfortunately led on to multi-organ failure, and eventually his death. And he's just one of the 85 million patients that will be admitted to intensive care for organ failure globally. But the moment they'll enter, the odds will be stacked against them, with their fate almost the same as a flip of a coin. Why does this exist, despite being in the most monitored ward? After consulting over 40 intensive care doctors globally, we found they have to consider a plethora of data when they're making their decisions for each individual patient. This isn't just overwhelming, but also divergent in its type. Therefore, key facts are missed, resulting in intensive care having the highest error rate in any hospital unit. Time is absolutely critical for an intervention to take effect, but the time to intervene is different for each patient, so doctors can't plan for it. Imagine being a doctor in this situation. This struggle is considered normal, but it doesn't have to be, because we created an evolving AI system that processes and amalgamates all this information and outputs the probability of deterioration, giving clinicians the most valuable commodity, time. And our algorithm simply sits in a software that can be accessed in any hospital screen and give insight on the patient. Let's see how this works on an actual patient data set. The algorithm automatically triages patients in order of risk, whilst also classifying the reason behind it. In the case of patient 1, we flag an early warning for septic shock. But as the patient continues to deteriorate, we flag another warning and escalate the card to the front. Though notice the first warning was given 32 hours before onset and well in advance of current methods utilized in practice. We are fundamentally changing the game from detection to prediction and therefore prevention. And if we predict these common causes of hospital deaths in advance, which we do in 32 hours, then we can actually reduce the probability of death and potential long-term conditions. And we've also tuned our product to meet all the users' needs, which is giving doctors more confidence in their decision-making through the early warning system, as well as enabling patients' likelihood of death being reduced and allowing hospitals to have a more efficient resource utilization through automated triaging as well as treatment justification. And we've been adapting our method for its immediate response to COVID by ensuring all of our code is written to be compatible with native digital record servers and documenting the entire design process for faster certification, to which we've been accepted at the Global Grad Show Entrepreneurship Program to showcase our product. And we've also applied for a COVID grant to try and get access to more COVID data. We also understood the competitive space, where we found the majority didn't really capture the full scope of clinicians' requirements, or they were still in their research phase. And our business model will be software as a service provided to electronic health record vendors and independent hospitals. Our product development, testing, and certification will be in the UK, but our go-to-market will be in the US due to the higher number of hospitals having the sufficient digital maturity. And we also see a much larger market in the US valued at $2.4 billion with an annual growth rate of almost 30%. And we're currently adjusting our model to cater for developing countries so that any patient can utilize this technology for their benefit. We began by talking to doctors and attaining the largest hospital data set to train and validate our model from MIT, and have won additional competitions, including understanding some failure case scenarios from our industry partners. We've also partnered up with Imperial NHS Trust and AIMS India to be our expert witnesses in preparation for clinical trials, and are currently in talk with major data vendors to try and get access to their data. We're currently submitting our scientific report for review to our expert witnesses and have attained a license for a much larger data set and have improved our model. But with a further £7,000, we can develop this product to prototype completion. I'm the founder with my background in AI, computer vision, and evolutionary algorithms, joined by Marta, who is a doctor by training and brings her expertise as a clinician to aid with product development. And our new additions are Tom, who's a full stack developer and a 2 times Microsoft Imagine Cup winner, and Luca, who's a scientist by training and assists with business development and planning. Our advisors from AI side is Professor Anil Bharat, and from the clinical side is Dr. Husana Sharafian, both who bring in their expertise from academia as well as commercial by having run their own startups. I want to finish with the fact that we were told this quote during my grandfather's time, and I certainly didn't want to hear it then, especially now, when we can do more. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you for your presentation. Jury members, please unmute yourself and for your questions.
I have a question. Sorry, so is this product already in the market, or are you on a beta? Sorry if I missed that.
No, sorry, yeah. So this product is currently in pre-alpha testing. So we have proven that our system works on the largest hospital data set available, isolated from a hospital. And we're currently looking to get into alpha testing where we can actually prove its efficacy in an actual clinical environment.
And do you have any timeline or who your first set of super users will be?
So our users will be clinicians in intensive care, but our timeline is to immediately try and attain contacts with, or continue developing that contact with data vendors to conduct that alpha testing, which should be done by this September end.
Thank you. Maybe, Sam, a quick question. There are clearly advantages of using AI, but we have had, for example, the Boeing 787 crash, which also where AI was forcing the plane to go down. So where do you see AI playing a challenge in your business and giving false predictions? And how do you see to mitigate that?
Someone's microphone is yeah, so just to reconfirm, your question is about how AI could go wrong and how we would mitigate?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first case is the way we prevent AI to go wrong is that our method is an evolutionary system, so it continuously learns, even if it's learning from its mistake or learning from what it's done right. So that actually reduces its error. If we predict 36 hours before the actual onset of organ failure, we perform at 96% accuracy. But as we get closer to the onset, so for example, 28 hours before, then we perform 98% accuracy. So we actually consider that learning process to prevent more errors to be formed. But with regards to where it can go wrong, there are other, sorry, is there a distortion on my end or?
Sorry, can I just request everyone to stay on mute, please? Thank you. Sorry, Sam, please.
No problem. And one of the ways that errors can go wrong from an algorithmic perspective is where the data can be missing, which we've actually already catered for. So we've trained our method to ensure that even if there's a missing part of data or the entire data, one particular type of recording is missing, then it readjusts its evaluation based on data that is present.
Thank you.
If I can just step in. So our system is designed to flag early warning scores, and it's just meant to give clinicians like me a hint that something is going wrong about like a day or two in advance. And so as far as things that can go wrong, the clinician is always in full control of the situation with the patient. And so it's never putting anyone at risk. If anything, it's just giving us warnings. And so worst case scenario, if it gives too many warnings, well, we're just a bit more vigilant. If it gives too few, well, we're just doing our job regardless. So there is kind of no downside as far as I can tell with the warning system. It's not meant to independently make decisions, like you said, with the Boeing, where it's going to tank the plane and we have to override. At no point do we ever, as clinicians, lose control.
Thank you.
ask a question? It's clearly health tech. Can you just explain a little more about the social impact that that comes about through using this?
I think it's best I let the clinician among us answer. So Marta, please take this forward.
Yeah, no, happy to. So as you could see on the slides, over 85 million people every year are brought in to ITU because of organ failure, if not multi-organ failure. And our system is able to accommodate all the organs that at this point in time we're able to support. So in addition to just all those patients that we can try and help prevent their deterioration and their death because it's just too many things at once, it's also for people like me, it would be such a blessing, because I found myself in the situation where I'm having to make those life and death decisions of who can come into ITU and who can't in wards that are overstressed. And I mean, COVID and my recent redeployment has only stressed that even more, because right now we're having wartime triage where anyone over 65 who has any comorbidity whatsoever, including high blood pressure or diabetes, doesn't get admitted because we don't have the space. And so having something so comprehensive like this that would tell me who's going to do well, when are they going to do well, will help me utilize our resources to the best of our ability and help me with decision making that, you know, when it's really overwhelming, it's really overwhelming. So as far as we can tell, this will save lives. It will help my job be easier. It'll save money for the hospital. So I think it's a bit of a win-win all around. And Sam was saying that, you know, our end goal will be to make it more user-friendly to help people in third world countries where, quite frankly, right now, they don't necessarily have all the technological advantages that we do. And so if we can give them that option where they're, you know, short on resources, short on staff, short on just anything that we don't quite feel as much here in the UK, being as privileged as we are, it would really make all the difference.
Sure. Thank you very much, Marta. Thank you for your presentation. We have to switch to the next team. Thank you.
Very well.
Thank you again, Team Third Eye Intelligence. We have Sin Sapien joining us now. Yeah.
Hello. Yes, very excited. Let me just share my screen with you all. Let's take a look at this. And can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, brilliant. Well, delighted to be here to introduce you to Sin Sapien. When it comes to technology, every day, everything will one day be possible. But here's the problem. We only have 10 years to cut carbon emissions by half, and we're not moving fast enough. $2 trillion was spent on R&D last year. That's 3 times as much as we spent in 2000. In fact, Stanford economists have found that research productivity has been declining by half every 13 years. The systems we've designed to solve 20th century challenges are really struggling to solve 21st century problems. So we need a paradigm shift in the way we innovate. Ooh, sorry, bear with me. I appear to have lost my mouse. Right, 84 scientists from around the world collaborated in response to the SARS epidemic. And in a month, they identified the virus responsible. This was an achievement that would have otherwise taken at least 7 months. But they did this using basic tools like email and video conferencing. And when we spoke with over 100 researchers, 83% of them said that they were working in increasingly larger groups, but that they lacked the adequate tools to do so. Our mission is very simple: to catalyze innovation by facilitating collaboration at scale. The first step is to create a shared digital space and build the community. We've partnered with the University of Melbourne and have adapted their Swarm platform, which was designed for intelligence agencies, and we're using it as our testing ground. Our growing community of 500 users can enter an anonymous space, brainstorm effectively with up to 100 people. But we want to increase this number by introducing an indirect or stigmergic communication mechanism designed to reduce the noise associated with big groups. Our data shows that the biggest barrier to collaboration is the fear of having intellectual property stolen. So we've designed a complex algorithm that measures the quantity and quality of individual contributions. This will be powered by blockchain and a legal framework to ensure that IP can be distributed. Larger and more diverse groups innovate better. This is why Sensapien will be open to all innovators and not just the 8 million researchers worldwide. Our unique skill and interest matching system, powered by machine learning, will get the right ideas in front of the right people. And just like your Spotify discovery playlist, the more you engage, the better it gets. It's imperative to democratize the development of research and technology. Less than 13% of PhD graduates find academic posts, despite the majority of them wanting to. Half leave research altogether, whilst tech giants buy up the best tech and the best talent. But it really goes beyond this. We all have great problem-solving ideas at some point or another, yet only 8% of people are willing to take the dive to develop these. By distributing the risk, more of these inventions can come to life. So we're testing our process on open source technologies, but our main revenue will come from working with manufacturing partners to commercialize our technologies. Current crowdsourcing platforms host competitions, offering nominal cash prizes, or at most offer 2% equity. We will be distributing up to 93% of the equity to our innovators. But technologies take a really long time to develop. So we've introduced an enterprise service that will enable us to grow in the meantime. We've spoken to potential clients like Samsung and Hitachi and established a very strong interest in using Sensapien to boost employee engagement, reduce silos, and harness their internal innovative potential. The global protest wave of 2019 is evidence that people care about global issues and they're really hungry to contribute in a meaningful way. We simply provide the ecosystem for them to do so. The biggest feedback we've had so far, however, is that we really need to improve our user interface, and that's exactly what we would do with the 7000. I'm Manolia. I met Basil on the Environmental Technology Masters course at Imperial. We both come from R&D consulting and shared a frustration with duplication and competitive barriers in critical sectors like pharmaceuticals and renewable energy. Jade joined us recently. She's an outstanding strategist who grew 2 online communities from thousands to millions of members. We have over 20 years of industry experience between us and a strong network of advisors from Imperial, Princeton, Georgetown, and Google. Our greatest asset, however, is the growing army of contributors who stand with us, helping to build a global digital laboratory to invent critical technologies faster. We're essentially proposing the evolution of research here.
Sorry, I'll have to stop you guys. The time is up. So
right.
I thank you very much for your presentation.
That's quite all right.
Can I just ask the jury members to please ask any questions?
Please go ahead.
I've got a question. How do you make sure that people that are contributing on the platform are actually sort of verified or do actually have knowledge and aren't just maybe, crazy people that are on a certain bandwagon?
Sure. Well, at the moment, all of the people that have joined the platform have done so because we have reached out to them. But of course, once this scales, we're not going to have the same level of control. There's a very robust system of peer review within the platform so that people can rate each other's proposals and ideas based on about 10 different metrics, based on how correct it is, how complete it is, the innovativeness, the impact potential, and so forth. So really it works on a peer review system where the greatest ideas that have been reviewed by the rest of the community members can rise to the top.
Thank you.
Not at all.
Hi, a great presentation. Quick question on the business model, just to clarify. Am I correct understood that in the short term, you're going to offer this to the enterprise as a white label solution for the employee to contribute and a bit like an employee community?
Yes, that's exactly right. So we would offer it as software as a service to enterprises, and we're targeting engineering companies, but really there is no bounds to the industries that could use this. It can be used to enhance global participation of their internal community members. So there are a lot of companies that have over 30,000 employees, and there's absolutely limited potential for them to make sure that if they have a problem, they can get the right people within that employee basis to actually come up with solutions for it. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, so what exactly relationship between the employee platform that as a community platform you are building versus to this open platform? Like, are this linked, or those are two separate projects?
So it's separate and linked in a way. As I'm not sure if you're familiar with GitHub, it's essentially a collaboration system, but for software developers. Now, GitHub has this vibrant open source community of people that participate on open projects. They have the option of closing up those projects, but they also have an enterprise solution for companies to use it privately within firewalls for their own employees. So it would work on quite a similar basis where the technology is identical, but it's used to a different community set.
It makes sense now. Thanks.
Not at all. Could I answer any other questions?
If there are no more questions, then thank you very much, Team Synsapien, and maybe we switch to the next team.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raul.
Thank you. The last one we have is Monoceros. Can you please come online?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, perfect, Theo. So can you take over the screen? We're still seeing, yes. Can you please share your screen, and we can start when you're ready.
Perfect. Let me share my screen. Let me know when you see my screen.
Yes, we can see it now.
Great.
You can start.
So hi, we're Monoceros, the company making packages speak, and honored to take part in the Ideas to Impact Challenge today. Supply chain is a key enabler for one of NGO's major missions, distributing drugs, vaccines, and food to the right place at the right time in the right conditions. But if dealing with an inefficient system, it may incur in severe monetary and human losses. Remember that supply chain spending account for 70% of NGOs' operational costs. To give you an idea of the impact of supply chain inefficiencies, more than 60% of medicine in Africa are falsified. Every year, many NGOs report more than $1 million of stolen medicine. And more than 30% of all perishable products become unusable. Here are some of the organizations that have publicly spoken about their data issues. Data is at the core of supply chain and inventory management. But if not done right, data issues can have dramatic consequences, especially in emergency response, such as for COVID-19. However, none of the existing systems provide reliable data for every step of the chain, which got us thinking, what if packages could speak? We figured out a new technology that is easy to use and implement, flexible to fit any geography or mission, cost-effective to provide all needed features in one tool, thus creating a system that encapsulates effortless data collection with real-time issue detection and actionable recommendation to give NGOs full control over their supply chain. This is Monoceros. How do we do it? Monoceros consists of a plug-and-play AI-powered sensor with 3 years of battery life, small enough to fit in any box you want to ship, and monitor its location and conditions in real time throughout its entire life, up to the very last mile. And this works anywhere on Earth. The data is then available to your software or with our platform. Our smart technology can automatically update the inventory levels and send you real-time alerts, such as delivery delays, conditions reaching the limit, and thefts. We're not the only company providing sensors for supply chain. However, until now, such IoT systems will have been way too expensive to use at the package level. Only our technology, by making software and sensors work hand in hand, can reduce the total cost of ownership of such IoT system by more than 60%. While at the same time, with one tool, providing solutions to problems such as inventory oversupply, falsification, theft, and perishability, and also opening new options such as insurance and optimizations. Monoceros, Sensing as a Service solution, allows NGOs to use the number of sensors they need when they need them for a subscription fee that includes the access to the web app, mobile app, and training. Our aim is to support the NGOs helping the 168 million people worldwide the most in need of humanitarian assistance. We focus on NGOs delivering medicines to fight COVID-19, and then more generally, drugs, vaccines, and high nutrition food. NGOs supply chain is complex, and we started by building a network of NGO supply chain specialists. Then we built a platform prototype to handle sensors data and test dashboard designs, for which we're partnering with experienced UX designers. Since building a hardware is very hard, we're working with companies that have previously developed IoT sensors for Africa. Our first test board should arrive next week, on which we'll test our software. In the next 3 months, we will have our final sensor design and software platform production ready. In the next 6 months, we will include the AI and IBM blockchain functionalities and launch pilots with NGOs in different countries. But to make this happen, we need to raise $250,000 to produce our first 1,000 sensors and run the pilots, after which we need additional financing for large-scale deployment. Monoceros is possible thanks to the unique combination of skill of its team, composed of a PhD in embedded system, PhD in machine learning, an MBA student from a McKinsey consultant on supply chain. To support Monoceros, we're currently part of 2 accelerator programs in London and advised by a diverse group of experts. Monoceros, we take care of the small things so we can take care of the big ones. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Team Monoceros. Questions, please.
Hi, I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about your competitors, and with so many supply chain optimizations out there, how is yours different and what's driving such a drastic cost difference?
Okay, so our competitors are have basically 2 different approaches. First one, you have people which consider only the hardware part and people focusing on the software one. For the hardware part, some are dependent on local infrastructure and have specific technology which needs to implement on site in different places you're using it. The other one, which rely as us on the GSM network and other mobile networks, are often too big and too expensive to run for this type of application. Now, how we manage to reduce the total cost of ownership is because we handle the hardware and the software. We can optimize every step of the chain between putting something on your box and having the data on your software to make a decision. And we're optimizing every step here. To give you an idea, the most expensive part of any IoT device connected to a GSM network is the communication. Every time you send a message through GSM network, it's expensive, both to pay for the communication, like any mobile phone, and in terms of energy. So our sensor is clever enough to decide when to send information, when something is useful and happening and you need to be aware of it, and save itself when it's not needed. And by doing this, for every single step between the sensor on the box and what information you need to take action, we're able to optimize it and reduce the total cost of ownership.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the team?
I have a question about the unit price of those devices and whether you're considering either insuring them or what happens at the time of the malfunction or at a loss.
So we're not selling the products, we are renting them. So we're giving companies the access to the products. Now, the main point here, I guess that's your point, is how do you take care of the maintenance and the reverse logistic of those sensors? So the way we design the using of these sensors is either once you end up at the end of the life of one of the package, you end up at the end of the life of one of the package, you can either reuse it to monitor a package which goes on the other way or which is leaving this warehouse. Or if you don't use it, you put the sensor back to one of our boxes and we take care of taking it back to the main place in Europe to use for another NGO. So we're handling the reverse logistics in partnership with the organization itself. But we're trying to push them to actually reuse the sensor on site. And many organizations actually ask us if it's possible to start monitoring package halfway on the chain. So even though we can start from the production warehouse to the last pharmacies, if you need to start monitoring packages from maybe the distribution center in Zimbabwe, it's possible. You can put our sensor there if needed. And then once you stop using it, either you use it or we take care of it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions from the jury? Okay, so if there are no more questions, then thank you very much, Team Monoceros. And that was all the presentations. Thank you all the teams for presenting. All the ideas were great. Now the jury will go back. May I please request jury to go in a separate Zoom chat room to discuss and deliberate. And we have our next presentation at 3:15. I believe Sankalp will be there, please.
Yes, thank you, Rahul, and thank you all amazing panelists. You have been amazing and lots of very good ideas. So thank you so much for coming up. Coming up next is Awesome always, but as planned, we would want him to be involved around 3:15 so that you can grab your coffee and be ready by then. So let's please take a quick break and come back at 3:15. And meanwhile, the judges will go and think about it. I would also encourage all the I2I panelists to stay along till the closing opportunity, because that's when we want you to interact with all the judges, all the panelists, and we'll have a breakout room for each of you separately so that you can have some interaction on ideas, and then we can take it further. So stay along, take a break, get a coffee, and see you at 3:15. All right. Ian. Thanks to all of you for coming back. It's a pleasure to have Oves as well. Let me just get started and introduce our next esteemed speaker. I hear very good stories and very popular stories. He's an amazing speaker and he has amazing experiences to share with us. Just to briefly introduce him to you, he's a Deputy Executive Secretary for the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. He joined the UNFCCC on 1st September 2017. He advises on a range of issues relating to the intergovernmental affairs and strategic planning. Mr. Samad works on a range of issues relating to intergovernmental affairs and strategic planning. He is also Chief of Staff to the Director General of the International Organization for Migration, brings to the position nearly 27 years of experience, where he worked in several policy and management areas to strengthen organizations' operational effectiveness in close consultation with IOM member states. Today, he will be sharing his experiences and knowledge on how to recover strategically from COVID-19, at the same time, greening economies and building societies more resilient. So thank you so much, Oves. It's a pleasure to have you here. And on behalf of the audience and team, welcome to Social Impact Day.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I just want to first of all make sure that you can hear me well and the line is clear and the technology is working. So that's great. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. Thank you very much, Sankalp. I learned about the Gandhi Center of Innovation and Impact at the Imperial College London, and really great pleasure to know about this center and the work that you do. Congratulations. And I listened to some of the sessions today and really very insightful, very encouraging, and very inspirational. So keep up the good work. And I'm sure you all, with the backing of the Imperial College, have a lot to offer to the world that we live in, especially at this time. I would also like to extend my thanks to Professor Francisco Velasco, who's the Dean of the Imperial College of Business School, for this invitation to share my thoughts and perspectives with all of you today. I have a personal reason also to accept this invitation, and very pleased to be here today, because Imperial College is close to me in many ways. My son graduated from the Imperial College not so long ago, and today is his birthday. And I shared this event with him, and he's probably watching from somewhere in California, where he is in an IT industry. Look, Imperial College doesn't need any introduction, and it's one of the world's leading science, medicine, and technological university. And it also works and has made a significant difference in the fight against climate change. So we're very grateful for that. And I've read a lot of very insightful, extremely enlightening analysis reports, research studies that have been shared by especially the Grantham Institute that is associated with the Imperial College. So your reputation for excellence precedes you. So again, thank you very much for all that you do. But here is what I'd like to share with you. First of all, to briefly introduce who we are, what we do, why we are here, and what are the areas that we are working on. So you already mentioned UNFCCC, which is the United Nations Climate Change Secretariat. We are the principal body in the UN system dealing with climate change. And in climate change, we have three instruments which are extremely important to us, and I'll briefly mention those to you. First of all is the convention that established the Secretariat, the climate change process, 25 years ago, which kicked off annual conferences, which are referred to as COPs. The last one that was held last year in Madrid, and that was 25th COP. So that is the main activity of the organization, through which we engage all parties that are member states, And we almost have a universal membership of the party delegations, 197 parties. And the second instrument is something referred to as the Kyoto Protocol, which happened 10 years after the adoption of the convention, which established a carbon credit market mechanism to address the impact of climate change. And more recently, in 2015, as you all know, the Paris Agreement was adopted. So those are the three main instruments, main treaty documents that provide the framework of what we do. And within that, the most important right now is the Paris Agreement. And the goal of the Paris Agreement is to maintain or limit the global warming to 1.5 degrees by the end of the century, and based on very concrete and specific science that informs our work. So that is the overall goal and objective of the Paris Agreement. And our role in the organization, we are based here in Bonn with about 400 staff and serving the parties, essentially, parties which are member states, but also growing now non-party stakeholders, that a terminology that we use, that is everyone else who is not a government, who is not a state, which includes private sector organizations, all of you in the academic world, in civil society and individuals, and very importantly, the corporations. So we do many things. First and foremost, we analyze and review the climate change information and data that is reported to us by the member states. And based on that, we report back to all those party delegations who meet on a regular basis about how the world is doing in terms of managing the impacts of climate change. So, and then also, in addition to that, more and more now recently, we reach out to all the non-party stakeholders to make sure that they are very much engaged in addressing the impacts of climate change and mitigating the impacts on the one hand and adapting to the changes in many countries, unfortunately, many of the vulnerable countries and affecting many vulnerable populations around the world. But unfortunately, at this stage, I'll get to the current crisis that we are facing, the COVID crisis, which has very close links and it interjects or intersects with the climate change process and climate change challenge. But right now, where we are at this stage globally in addressing climate change, unfortunately, we are woefully short of meeting the targets that have been set by the Paris Agreement. Now, by that, what I mean is, if we take all the actions by all the governments around the world and we pull that together and see where the world is heading to, we are not on the trajectory of remaining within the 1.5 degree global warming that has been set by the Paris Agreement. Unfortunately, we'll probably at the current rate go way above that, maybe twice as much, which is quite serious and a significant issue that faces the entire international community. And as a result of that, we see the impacts of that on a daily basis in many parts of the world. Right now, the cyclone which is hitting Bangladesh and India, in the Bay of Bengal and many other places, various extreme weather events that are happening, including I read a report today where it says the Arctic is becoming green, or parts of Arctic actually. So these are the real impacts, and the scientists tell us in no doubtful terms that the situation is quite serious and urgent action needs to be taken. But at the same time, we also have a lot of hope, and that's why I remain a congenital optimist that we have time, we have the ability, we have the tools, we have the momentum, we have the desire to live in a cleaner, greener, more responsible environment in which we live and work. So that is there. It's a question of how do we mobilize that. Right now, what we see is the economies are crumbling. the climate disasters are increasing, the humanity is facing unprecedented and oftentimes insurmountable challenges, so it may seem. And we are also caught in a nexus of negativity, and simply reading the news every morning has become a challenge for which we must brace ourselves. But here I am also to tell you that there is a lot of hope, as I said. Hope for a world that we can be cleaner, greener, and more sustainable. Hope exists, but it must be accompanied by action. And it's that nexus where our work begins. And let me now briefly talk about COVID-19, which we all have been confronted with, and I really hope and sincerely wish everyone safety, everyone who's connected and beyond, because this is a crisis like never before we have seen, and it has really shaken us. And what it has revealed is the vulnerabilities of the world and the societies and the countries and the governments like we have never imagined, and in a very, very short period of time, and in every part of the world. And it also, more importantly, it has reaffirmed the value of what we refer to as multilateralism, that global challenges, global issues such as climate change, the COVID-19 crisis, or similar issues that face the global community cannot be dealt by any one country, any one organization, any one society, or any individual for that matter. We need to join hands together. We need to work through what we refer to as inclusive multilateralism, especially at a time when that is being diluted for unfortunate political reasons in some parts of the world. Let me briefly touch upon the impact on the economies that we are seeing. A significant part of the response will be economic as we try to recover from the current crisis. And this is especially important because this is where we believe COVID-19 crisis and the climate change and climate emergency intersect. Right now, nations throughout the world are in the process of, as you know, announcing economic response measures to COVID-19. These measures are changing daily and are likely the virus itself, simply unprecedented with respect to the size and significance of those measures. They have either been in the form of emergency funds provided by many governments or a loosening of monetary policies, or with components that may have implications in the longer term. The IMF, for instance, estimates that fiscal measures that have been taken globally to date alone amounts to more than $8 trillion. And this number will continue to grow. In the coming weeks, several major economies will take further key decisions in their recovery efforts, including the European Union, the new stimulus package that the United States of America and India that they are talking about in their legislative bodies, including the G7 heads of states in June. In this context, our role in the UN Climate Change Secretariat is to urge governments, to urge all stakeholders as they roll out these response measures to make them as green and as inclusive as possible. Because in recovery is a chance to also recover better. We don't want to go back to the world that we were before the crisis, before the current crisis, in terms of the way we were consuming, in the way we were affecting the environment, in the way we were traveling, and the use of fossil fuels in a very unrestricted manner. So we don't want to go back there, and we want to, and there is no need to actually, because we have very viable alternatives. We have renewable energies, we have circular economy, we have many other areas that we can build back better and in a more responsible fashion. The IMF itself points out that when the great lockdown, as they call it, ends, a strong economic recovery that benefits everyone will depend on improved social safety nets and broad-based fiscal support. This includes public investments in healthcare. Healthcare was going to be huge, infrastructure, and very importantly, also climate change. They estimate, and I quote, countries need to invest more than 20 trillion more over the next 15 to 20 years in climate change and other sustainable development goals. That's why I say that this is a great nexus, which also provides hope in an unprecedented window of opportunity, one that can shape the trajectory of the 21st century and create a world that is clean, green, safe, and more prosperous for all, including the world's most vulnerable. But as we have already established, hope and aspiration must be followed by action. And what do I mean by that? Recovering better. I'll share 6 very concrete areas that we feel are necessary and can be replicated in many different ways. And these have also been advocated and very strongly supported by our Secretary General. And these are: first, as we spend huge amounts of money to recover from the current crisis, we must deliver new jobs and businesses through a clean and green transition, a transition which must be safe and just transition. Second, where taxpayers' money is used to rescue businesses, it needs to be tied to achieving green jobs and sustainable growth. Third, fiscal firepower must drive a shift from gray to green and make societies and people more resilient. Fourth, public funds should be used to invest in future, not the past, and flow to sustainable sectors and projects that help environment and the climate. Our Secretary General also was very specific on this point, saying that fossil fuel subsidies must end, and polluters must start paying for their pollution. Don't tax the taxpayers for the pollution, but tax the polluters. Fifth, climate risk and opportunities must be incorporated into financial system, as well as aspects of public policy making and infrastructure. And finally, we need to work together as an international community and uphold the value of multilateralism, as I mentioned, in a global crisis, which is unmistakable, and even by those who have not understood this previously. And we already, as I mentioned, we have the framework for action, and that framework is the Paris Agreement, the Sustainable Development Goals, the 2030 goals. So, as I often say, we have all the tools of the trade, but these plans and the frameworks provide a tremendous opportunity to formalize urgent policies and plans, which needs to happen immediately and very soon. And we cannot wait. We cannot wait for another 5 or 10 years. Our window of opportunity to address climate change will likely close by then. The future, in other words, dear friends, is now. This, however, is not only the job of the governments, and this is where all of you, the role of non-state actors and academic institutions come in. Let me briefly share some of the thoughts in that regard. Non-state actors are both driving change and reinforcing this idea of recovery from COVID-19 being linked to global climate change and sustainable development efforts. Just yesterday, in the largest ever United Nations-backed chief executive officers-led climate advocacy to date, major multinationals have reaffirmed their own science-based commitments to achieve zero carbon economy and called on governments to match their ambition. And as often we have seen, private sector is much ahead of the government action, but the government action should follow suit. And more specifically, 155 companies with a combined market capitalization of more than 2.4 trillion and representing more than 5 million employees have signed a statement urging governments around the world to align their COVID-19 recovery plans with the latest climate science. The signatories span 34 sectors and have headquarters in 33 countries. And they are part of what we refer to as Science-Based Target Initiative. They're calling for policies that will build resilience against future shocks by supporting the efforts under the Paris Agreement. to hold global temperatures rise, as I mentioned, to within 1.5 degrees pre-industrial levels, in line with reaching net zero emissions well before 2050. These 155 companies, by the way, have already set or committed to set science-based emission reduction targets. So we see action by governments, action by non-governmental organizations, but yet the road ahead remains a challenging one if we are to emerge from this period pointing towards a more resilient and sustainable future. This action must include the academic institutions. We need your work, your hope, your continued leadership, and much more. And how can you do that, and more specifically? Here are 3 specific ways. First, to underline the message to the wider world that we cannot sacrifice one emergency for the sake of another. COVID-19 and the climate emergency are both urgent. However, as I've outlined, they are not mutually exclusive. Recovery from one can also help us make significant progress towards the other. And second, we need you to help to stop the scourge of disinformation with respect to both COVID-19 and climate change. Vested interests, unfortunately, continue to throw up roadblocks, worsen our challenges, and internationally confuse those issues. Once again, the Secretary General calls it an infodemic, with which I fully agree. We must ensure people have the facts available both to protect themselves with respect to COVID and climate change in order to make more informed decisions. And you at the Imperial College have the right platform and the tools and the even the moral ability and authority to do that. And I encourage you to consider where and how we can work more closely together, the Imperial College and the UN Climate Change Secretariat. And I'd be more than happy to extend whatever support and collaboration opportunities that we can work out with. In the meantime, our work in the United Nations climate change, despite the current lockdowns, which is slightly getting relaxed, continues actually much deeper and more stronger than ever before, because we have strongly committed that we will not let this crisis put a shadow on the climate emergency. In fact, we need to do a lot more. You will soon see that in June, we are calling for a June month for momentum and action. And you will see a lot of events that have been planned and engaging all parts of the society and organizations around the world during the June month in various events leading to very concrete actions that we need to take. So not just staff, but not just party or member states, not just the youth, businesses, or academia, but by people throughout the world who need to take action. And we are working with all of them because they know this is not the time to retreat. This is the time for facts. This is the time for science. This is the time for knowledge. This is the time of inclusive multilateralism. And this is the time for seeking solutions. And this is the time for this generation to accept the challenge that is facing it, to build a cleaner world, a healthier world, a more sustainable world, and a world that is more just and prosperous for all. It's ours if we want it. And I'm sure that we all together will work towards this. And I once again like to thank all of you for spending the time with us here this afternoon, and look forward to keeping in touch, sharing more views and thoughts, and working with the college and all of you at some point or the other in different contexts. So thank you very much, Sankalp, and over back to you.
Thank you so much, Oveis. Lots and lots of information to understand and chew. So thank you so much for your time. And I love the way you've tried to frame kind of a partnership collaboration model to come out of this pandemic. And we have lots to share. We have lots of work. And I'm sure apart from Imperial, there are going to be a lot more institutes who want collaboration so that we can find some sustainable solutions as we come out of this pandemic, hopefully soon. But again, even on the climate change side. So thank you so much for your time. I know you've been extremely busy, so thank you once again. And I have Dean Francisco Veloso joining us as well. So let me request him to come and thank Oves as well and other speakers who have been here. Thank you, Francisco.
Hello, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be here with you. It would even be nicer if we could have been all in the same room, but I don't have to tell anybody why are the reasons that we're not doing that. But what I think is really important is the fact that we pushed ahead with this initiative, and the reason is, as we were just hearing from Oves, is that this is really an important element. This issue of social good is something that actually COVID has actually brought to the forefront. And so I just wanted to start by thanking everybody from joining the initiative today. And certainly starting with the teams that submitted the ideas and the finalists that are here today and whose results we will be announcing shortly. And of course, I would like to also thank our speakers, our panelists. Always, thank you very much. I was listening to your speech in the background, and it was very interesting. And I'll note a couple of instances on how close that comes to our heart at Imperial here with the Gandhi Center. But even beyond other initiatives that we're doing, but also, of course, our other panelists, Anil Kumble and the participants on the panel on ethics and the inclusion on AI. Sustainable development and social responsibility is very much at the heart of the business school strategy, and this is quite important for us. When we finished our strategic review a couple of years ago, it was very clear that this was something that was done at the bottom up, and actually, this is one of the interesting things about being at home is that once you have little ones, they can come and join your meeting. And I just have my little one that just decided to join this. So, ok, agora não posso, tá bem? Agora não posso. So these are the joys of working from home. With your kids are moving freely, and they just join into as part of our conferences. But that's common for all of us that are going through these situations. But going back to the point I was making on the strategy, it is really critical, and it was already part of many activities that were happening at the school, and we wanted to bring it to the forefront of that. Because, as Oves was mentioning, I think we're uniquely equipped to deal with that. And we have many initiatives beyond Gandhi, and I'll come to that in a second. We have a master's and a center in the area of climate change and finance that connects the work that we do across Imperial in climate with the capabilities that we have at the university in the area of finance, so that we can deploy the resources to the right initiatives. And this is very much in line with what Oves just mentioned about, for example, if you're going to bail out companies, if you're going to support them, how do you do that in a way that really shepherds the decisions towards a much more sustainable world? We created a center on sustainability to bring that to the core strategy level at the corporation, to make sure that purpose, social responsibility is really very much present in what they do and in their actions. We're very involved around that with a variety of agencies and corporations. One of the more recent ones was precisely an agreement with the International Energy Agency on how do we make sure that COVID recovery is very much, shepherding and pushing us towards a more sustainable future. But also, as it could not be, put away, there's also a very important presence in the area of health. I mean, this was also present before. For example, we have a really significant project in the area of child obesity and how to prevent child obesity, which we know is one of the many challenges that we have around the world related to development, and many others that we've been developing over the last few years. Now, this has brought this issue of social good to the forefront because It was already there, but COVID has made this even more present and even more significant, because we can see the asymmetries on who's being affected by COVID, the differences between the North and the South, the resources that are available to fight this pandemic, and how asymmetrically they are distributed around the world. But even within our own context, I mean, we know, for example, even here in the UK, how different the impact of COVID has been in terms of the racial characteristics of the population. So we know that there's many social elements that we need to very much fight for and develop over the future. But we also have to be smart about it. We need to be able to leverage tech. We need to be able to be entrepreneur. We need to be able to do things differently, to do things smartly. And we also need to do this in a way that engages the broader people. And in our own context in the university, that's our staff and our students, but also, as always also mentioned, connecting what we do here with the broader context because of the role that universities play. So we want to be at the forefront of this, of social responsibility and social good. And the Gandhi Center is really very much at the heart of this strategic commitment at the business school. I mean, we're here today with the Ideas to Impact, which is one of the flagship initiatives that Gandhi organizes. But we've been doing others. We've been involved in a data science for social goods initiative, hackathons to try to tackle social goods, a variety of engagement initiatives around the world, in India and around Asia, but also in Africa, trying to leverage the use of tech for social good, precisely given the forefront nature that Imperial has on the context of technology, and trying to bring that so that it's being used not just for improving productivity at firms and organizations, which is of course very important, but also to make sure that it leverages that technology for social impact and for social good. And that's very much at the heart of what we try to do here. So, I mean, this is very much to set the stage for presenting the awards for our Ideas to Impact. The idea precise is that if we think and if we believe that we need to bring the social good in a practical way, in a way that affects people's lives, then this connects to this idea. Let's try to think about ideas that can change 1 million lives, that can really have an outsized impact in populations around the world, and make the world a much more inclusive and just one. So, this is what I wanted to do, besides thanking everybody, and that includes certainly the Gandhi team for the work to put this forward and to continue to push it, even though we can't do it physically. And with that, I'd like to hand it back to Sankalp, and I'll stay on now for the final elements of basically announcing the winners. There's going to be, of course, some people that we're going to be providing this extra help for them to push forward with their project. But I really want to very much stress that one of the ideas behind the Ideas to Impact is to create visibility and empowerment to all of the ideas that have been put forward. And we've been having amazing ideas, and I really want to salute everybody that pushed these ideas forward, and all the finalists, because the ideas are really good and they can have a dramatic impact. All we're doing through these awards is to provide a little bit of extra nudge to a few that we think we can have a go at advancing at a perhaps a little bit faster pace. So with that, Sankalp, we can perhaps move into the
Thank you, Francisco, for trying to sum up the conversation as well, and the moment that everyone is waiting for. And I know the students, especially the I2I finalists, are really curious to know about it. And I personally didn't want to take a break at this time. So personally, we have had, again, I was just discussing with all the judges as well. So now we have the results for the top 3 ones. And I do want to mention that what Francisco mentioned, that support doesn't stop with only the seed funding that we are giving to only 3 teams. What we are actually hoping to is to provide support as an institution, as an ecosystem, wherever we can. So don't be disheartened if I'm not trying to show that. We have had lots of applications from all over UK, cross university collaboration, and some of them were, quite a few of them were from India as well. So we had to make choices, and 6 of you, your teams were the ones who were there. So let me tell Francisco that so the third prize, which is equivalent of £3,000 of seed funding and continued support from the academics and the industry in the relevant industry, goes to, and Francisco, maybe you can break the silence.
Sure, and then I think we should all clap. And so the third one goes to Monoceros.
Oh, that was an amazing presentation as well. I love them as well. On the second one, we have a seed fund of £5,000, which goes to.
And the second winner is Freshback. So again, congratulations to the team.
Fascinating. I can see the smiles already. So fantastic. The first one, where it was a kind of a unanimous decision from the judges, and considering the impacting a million lives, goes to, which is equivalent of £7,000 of seed funding, goes to Francisco.
And the winner is Third Eye. Congratulations.
You.
Fantastic efforts. All of you, thank you so much for your hard work. I know that we have been chasing you for presentations, and all along you have been working really hard. So that was amazing. We do usually want to have this opportunity as a virtual capture moment. In person, if we were there, we would have clicked a photograph of all of us together. At this time, can I request all the people on the Zoom video, can you please turn on your videos so that we can see you? And let's try to capture this moment together, that at least by purpose we are together, and that can actually help us create a memory. So before I let you go into the breakout rooms to discuss ideas, I will wait for a few seconds for everyone to come up. I was told that there are quite a few people who wanted to join on this, but again, the platform is restricting the outreach as well for us. But thank you so much for staying all along. And I think they are almost everyone there. Okay, some people are messaging that they are not able to start the video. All right. I can't do a selfie here, but what I would actually do is just a click of our team can click a photograph. Somebody. No, we can at least celebrate this moment. We can't have it together, but at least let's celebrate, have smiles, because we are talking about social impact here. Thank you. Thank you. Somebody has to use one hand. So thank you so much. Thank you, Oveis.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. So first of all, again, thank you so much for staying all along. I was noticing that you guys were there. So what we thought, we can't have virtual drinks, in-person drinks, but at least to utilize this opportunity of trying to interact with each other, what we will do next is our capable team is going to create these 6 breakout rooms for all the finalists that we have had. So each team will have one breakout room to work with, and all the audience will be assigned to different rooms to go and have a conversation with them. We were getting lots of questions from the audience to engage and work with the finalists as well. But unfortunately, because of the time restrictions, that was not possible. But I must say that all of you kept on time. It doesn't happen in real life sometimes, but in a virtual one, every one of you was on time. So let me give access to my team members. I would appreciate some patience while we work it out. So 6 breakout rooms for 6 team members. So every team goes to one breakout room, and we are going to assign some people joining in, and you have a conversation, a moment of conversation with them all. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you in person and helping you throughout your impact journey. Thank you once again.
Congratulations and thank you.